Hello. Welcome to my channel Touching Stories. You're about to hear an amazing story about love and unexpected decisions. Enjoy watching.
There aren't many left now who live in communal housing. Ariane belonged to that minority before she had a two-room apartment, which she earned by hard work at the factory. But then she had to share the apartment with her son, and it became clear that he wouldn't have earned any housing himself. And what can you divide a miserable, especially if it is located in a noisy, dirty yard? Harvey's son was bought a one-bedroom. It was assumed that he still had everything ahead of him. There would be a family and children. Ariane moved into a communal apartment, one of those for the poorest, almost marginalized. The room was semi-basement, under the whole house. It turned out that people who deserved better conditions lived here for a while. Both teachers. They came from Central Asia, where conditions were absolutely unbearable. They had to practically flee, leaving everything they had. The couple were no longer young, and they were desperate to earn a decent place to live. They had a lot of experience, and both of them not only worked like the damned at school, but until late in the evening students came to their house. Harry was an unsurpassed math tutor. His pets easily entered even universities. From a distant Tajik town, he brought back a statue that had been given to him by the school children there. It was made in the form of a star, and the inscription, "To the great teacher," on the stand. The great teacher suffered from lung disease, suffocated in the basement, and dreamed of the time when his small family would move to the most modest one-room apartment, but certainly with a balcony. There he would spend his free time, in the coolness of the middle belt of the United States, exhausted after the southern heat. There was a young couple, Naomi and Anthony, both working as janitors, who were also saving for a place to live. They lived in the basement, and alcoholics, fortunately, quite quiet and harmless, and a scandalized mother with a daughter about 10 years old. She kept demanding that Harry step into her shoes and tutor her Sonia in math for free. He even kind of sympathized and agreed. But Sophia was completely devoid of ability, had the memory of a goldfish, which is known to last 3 seconds, and Harry realized that all his efforts will be in vain. He refused, and now Walker's mom was stalking him and his wife, trying in every way possible to muck them up, which, as we know, is quite easy to do in a communal kitchen. Ariane knew that she would never get out of this environment and would live here. But having infinite patience, she did not complain about life, did not feel sorry for herself, taking comfort in the fact that she still had a roof over her head. The basement was warm in winter, and her room was bad enough for her son not to try to take it away. Ariane's pension was small, but her rent was penniless, and that was a plus. It was one of the worst neighborhoods in the city, cut off from the rest by a federal highway, and, as they say, godforsaken. No park, no entertainment centers, not even a hairdresser's shop. Typical houses of the 60s, and bare yards filled with old cheap cars. Once, not long ago, a student, Angelica, lived in their basement, and she dropped a mysterious phrase while putting the kettle on in the common kitchen. Not a neighborhood, but a straight-up denial faction. Angelica said it loudly, perhaps expecting the other tenants to hear, but Ariane didn't understand and dared to ask again. "What do you mean?" Angelica hesitated a few moments and condescendingly explained. "There is such a movie, Divergent is called. In short, in such conditions as we, there lived the most wretched." Ah, Ariadne stretched out, emphasizing only the word wretched, and in my time they used to say at the bottom. "It also fits," agreed Angelica, taking the boiling kettle off the stove. Soon she was given a place in the dormitory at the college where she was studying, and Angelica left the basement, where she had rented a bunk behind a screen. Ariadne's life might have turned out very differently if she had been less conscientious, or, as she said herself, not so stupid. In her younger years, she had been good-looking, dark-haired, with correct features and a good figure. But she was brought up so quietly in her native family that she knew only the house and the factory where she worked as a copyist. No coquetry, no romance, just a dumb dress, eternally downcast eyes, and a drawing board. She very much wanted her own place, but there was little hope that apartments were given first of all to families. A single woman had almost no chance. And then Cindy's terrible story happened, and things changed a little bit. Cindy was also a copy girl, single, and she was waiting for an apartment. She was first in line, but she'd been passed over a few times. They didn't give much housing per department, 2 or 3 lucky people a year, and it turned out that someone was always in urgent need. You had to keep a man, a valuable specialist, to keep him. Cindy was summoned to the trade union committee, talked to, asked to understand, promised that she would definitely be the next one, that she would have to get into the situation and wait a few months. And Cindy had boxes under her bed. She was dreaming, buying curtains, a set, shelves for her future apartment. When she was called and asked to wait and be patient once again, she reacted differently than she always did. She didn't swear, she didn't even cry. She was quiet. Then she was seen in the bathroom, standing by the window smoking. She smoked for a long time, looking at the bleak landscape of factory buildings and smoky chimneys. And then the gypsies knocked at the janitor's door. Where had they come from? There were dakas behind the factory. Maybe the gypsies were fishing there. But in any case, they hadn't come before, and they didn't show up afterwards. But this time they asked, "Isn't that your girl lying there?" Cindy stepped through the 4th-floor window. The gypsies brought her in on a rug. On the way, it took off her heeled, brand-new patent leather shoes. After this incident, apartments began to be given strictly one by one. No one else tried to move. And Ariane's colleagues sent her to the sea for a vacation. Maybe you'll find someone there. And they thought about themselves, if only a holiday romance had happened. And the romance did take place. In a normal environment, Ariadne would hardly have met such a magnificent specimen of the male species as Archie. A tall, flamboyant, handsome man attracted the attention of ladies everywhere. He appeared in the boarding house, on the beach, on the seafront. He came on vacation alone. His wife and children stayed at home. She started renovations. She could have waited for help from her husband, but she loved him too much and decided to take it all on herself. Let Archie rest. Archie wanted an affair, but no sequel. Why would he want to go to all that trouble and headache? With his trained eye, he chose Ariadne. Moreover, their rooms were on the same floor, and they were at neighboring tables in the dining room. Archie began to give the modest neighbors such signs of attention that Ariadne, as they say, the ground went out from under her feet. When the term of her stay at the resort ended, she borrowed money for the first time in her life, wrote to a coworker, and the latter sent her by telegraph. True, she had to leave the boarding house and settle in the private sector. But Ariadne was still allowed to dance evenings, allowed to walk along the paths of the beautiful Park Health Resort. The guards got used to her. Archie was so happy that she stayed. And then he left. Of course, he promised not to forget to write to call. But he did not give his number, explaining that his wife was very jealous. He proposed to meet at the same place, at the same hour, that is, to come both to the same preventorium next year. Ariadne went to see him off to the train, and he waved to her for a long time when the train was already leaving the platform, until the conductor drove him in and locked the door. For the last few days, Ariadne sat alone by the sea and wept silently, for she was so homesick. She would go to a wild beach, almost deserted, and there she would cry for a long time until she was tired, and then the sun would dry the traces of tears on her cheeks. In the fall, Ariadne already knew that she was pregnant and that she would have this child. The women at work, with whom she was on good terms, supported this decision. Right, 27 years old, where to pull, you will give birth for yourself and grow up. And single mothers are entitled to benefits. You will keep silent, we will achieve for you. And indeed, she was not left alone. Ariadne's parents took the news coldly. They thought that since their daughter had decided to live the life of an adult woman, let her cope with all the difficulties on her own. She did not count on their help. Ariadne knew that her parents loved her younger brother more, and she was desperate to understand why. He was mischievous, always causing a lot of trouble. But nevertheless, he was forgiven everything, and she nothing. But then fate itself began to help Ariadne. She gave birth to a healthy son, who she named Harvey. Archie decided not to inform her. She knew that under no circumstances he would not leave the family, and guessed that one thing is a fleeting mistress and another woman with an unwanted child. Maybe he would refuse to acknowledge paternity or start avoiding her in every way. It was very humiliating, and Ariadne decided to let him know nothing. She would raise her son on her own. She was given an apartment, and not just any apartment, but a 2-room apartment. For a long time, it seemed like a blessing. Women from work brought her bundles of things from which their own children grew up. One kind soul gave her an old washing machine. And life flowed on, albeit on the well-known principle of we should stand the day and the night to hold out, but still it is possible to live. Kolka first got a place in a nursery school, then in a kindergarten. When he went to school, he was given vouchers to summer camp. But the most priceless gift Ariadne considered the dacha's stony plot of land behind the factory, which she raised from scratch. That's what they say, what you sow. She plowed here like a curse, ran to the dacha every free minute, had time to look here before work and during lunch break. Maybe it was her life's work to plant, to grow, to take care of plants like children. Now Ariadne seemed happy under her patient, affectionate hands. Everything was growing and fragrant. But strangely, the very women who had pitied her before and tried to help her now looked at her success with a frown and even envy. Though Ariadne was glad to share, to thank them for everything. She brought strawberries, cucumbers, tomatoes, apples to work. She would wash them, put them in bowls on the table behind the closet, where they had set aside a kitchen for themselves. And they were mean to her, and it was hard for Ariadne to believe it. That seedlings, which she kept on a sunny windowsill, poured a strong solution of salt. Then at the dacha rose seedlings dug up. Then break the window in the cottage, which she built, cutting herself and her son in everything. Ariadne did not know how to react to such things. She smiled bewilderedly, though she wanted to cry. Again and again she started from scratch. Harvey didn't help at the cottage. Like most young people, he thought that fiddling in the ground was boring, and in general it was not his business. Let the old people do it. He could at least somehow pity his mother to bring home heavy bags of crops. They never had a car, but it didn't even occur to Kolka to waste his time like that. And Ariadne dragged herself home with a backpack on her shoulders and heavy buckets full of berries. While you walk endless paths under the hot sun, and then get home with 2 transfers. Here it would go to shower and collapse into bed, but where's there? I have to go back to the open hearth to make billets, or everything will be lost. Ariadne aged faster than her peers. Her face quickly faded. Her gait became heavy. Her shoulders humped tiredly. Her formerly thick hair had thinned, and she did not try to arrange it in a beautiful way, just wrapped it in a bundle. She always spent money on herself, not only sparingly, but tried to avoid expenses altogether. The neighbor gave away her dress perfectly. Let unfashionable and not quite to size, hangs a bag, but still out of the house in it can go out perfectly. One more gift from someone else's shoulder, and Ariadne thought she was dressed for summer. Everything she had managed to put away was for her son Harvey, but the farther away, the more his fate troubled his mother. The boy very early became interested in gambling. Back in school, he constantly argued with his friends on something. If the company played cards, Kolka was always uninterested in playing for nothing. He tried to persuade his buddies to put on the line a beautiful pen or money given to them by their parents for school lunches or a leather belt. What about himself? His friends would tease him. Harvey could either take something out of the house or even steal from strangers in the hope that he does not lose, and then discreetly return the taken. But the farther he went, the less reason he had to steal. With sleight of hand and a bit of fraud, he became a real card cheat. But the life of such people is not only difficult, but also dangerous. In the hope of picking up a good score, Harvey several times went to the risk and was beaten. Once the case ended up in the hospital, and the surgeons were not sure whether the guy will get out. His fever didn't go down for a long time, and he couldn't lift his head. Ariadne sat next to her son and quietly howled, slightly audible, but so bitter and hopeless. If Harvey had died, she would have been alone in the world for the rest of her life. But he survived. It taught him a lesson for a while. He tried to live a normal life, even enrolled in technical school, but he was already poisoned by the game, and like a drug addict, could not do anything about it. And then he learned that there is a casino, roulette, and he was finally blown away. Now he often didn't come home at night. The first time it happened, Ariadne lay awake all night, pacing the rooms. She called the ambulance station, asking them to let her know if there was a call for a guy with these signs. The next day, Harvey showed up late, his cheeks sunken, his fingers trembling, and he showed his mother a wad of money. Ariadne sat down like that. She could not believe that her son had gotten such a sum honestly. And how could a game be fair? 1-1, the up it lost, and it was good if he didn't get his hands on himself. She struggled with her son for a while, but there was nothing she could do. She had never meant much to him. Always a hard worker, busy doing things. She didn't have time to read to her son, or talk to him or go out. So he grew up a stranger, and with some even squeamishness looked at the old woman, who was dressed a little better than a beggar. It never occurred to him to use the money he had won to buy something for his mother. At least a bottle of perfume or lipstick. Although, if you think about it, why would she need it? She'd forgotten when she put on lipstick. And so Harvey was tired of it all to return to the miserable apartment to listen to his mother's reproaches that he moved out, God knows where, disappeared like he vanished into thin air. Ariane was always afraid of losing her son, and then it happened. It went on like that for a few years, and then Harvey showed up out of the blue. It happened when he lost big, owed a lot of money to tough people, and they threatened him. If he didn't pay up, let him blame himself. That's when Ariane rushed to sell everything she had. First, of course, the apartment, for which a good price was not given. What kind of modern repairs without tears cannot look without tears? Babushatnik something. I managed to get Harvey's cheap one-bedroom and a room in his mother's basement. Almost everything in the apartment was gone. Ariane still considered the rug that hung on the wall, the tea set that had never been used, the chandelier with crystal pendants, and the gold earrings that her colleagues had given her for her retirement to be the most valuable things. When she used to buy a carpet and a chandelier set and a silk bedspread, it made her feel that she was as good as anyone else. Now it was all long out of fashion and going for pennies. Well, at least it was something. It was a pity to part with the dacha. Ariane considered potential buyers meticulously, as if they were foster parents to her child. But there were no worthy candidates, no river nearby, no forest, just a factory. In the end, Ariane gave the dacha to a neighbor who wanted to connect the two sites. How Harvey got out of it with the debt Ariane never found out, but she realized her son felt a little guilty. He'd helped her move into her new place, and then he came, as he said himself, to the housewarming party with a cheap cake in a cardboard box. "Well, mother," he said, "I think you have what you need." "What do you need more than that for? It's warm. The facilities aren't outside. Neighbors, again, all in plain sight. If you get sick, they'll call a doctor and give you a glass of water." But Ariane sat idly with her hands in her lap. It was still hard for her in this half-dark, cramped room. But she realized that no one would take responsibility for her fate, and her main task for the next few years was to keep herself in such a condition that she would not be a burden to anyone. At one time, she even went to a health group, free of charge, for pensioners. In a neighboring house in the same basement as theirs, there was a gymnasium. Here the women practiced music, something like aerobics, and their trainer Ekaterina Ivanovna promoted Nordic walking, which, according to her, gave almost immortality. Perhaps Ariane would have gone to this women's club while she could, but Harvey's fate changed again. He had an affair with a young girl, and then Ariane became a fanatical saver. She even on the street, without hesitation, bent over to pick up a 10-kopeck coin. "What do you need money for?" Harvey asked her mockingly when he saw a half-liter jar of change on her mother's windowsill. "For the funeral," Ariane replied briefly. "Oh, mother," whistled Harvey, "you don't know. The prices for a funeral are so high now that you won't save for the rest of your years." "What am I supposed to do?" "Don't worry, nobody's left on top of the ground. We'll work it out somehow." And Harvey got up to leave. He never stayed at his mother's for more than half an hour. Mostly he came in when he was hungry and there was nothing to eat. What could Ariane do to feed him? She traveled to a distant market, where the Eastern merchants made a considerable discount at the end of the day. And the thin old woman often got something for free. With the words, "Take it, mother," she was handed a cabbage, a few crumpled tomatoes, or some potatoes. Ariane boiled the soup. She already knew from experience that if you prepare a dish without hurry, carefully, and with love, it can compensate to some extent for the lack of variety. She had her own secrets that poverty bestowed, and sometimes Harvey even praised this humble meal, which he would never have thought of preparing at home. What was it, really? Bread toasted with garlic and butter. It would go well with the same borscht. Never asked Harvey if his mother needed anything, medicine or winter boots that wouldn't get wet. Stopped by a couple times a month for a snack, that's all. What's your pension, mother? He asked me once, I'd forgotten. Ariadne said it was very modest. Nothing, her son reassured her. I know you will save something from this money, and the pension is also indexed. You'll be a millionaire by the time you're 80. He laughed nastily, stuffed some wafers in his pocket, which Ariadne served for tea, and left. Although the old woman had very little contact with her neighbors and never complained to them about her life, they still noticed something. Shameless Harvey, said the janitor Naomi to her husband, Aunt Kathy is at such an age that it is necessary to take care of her, and I'm always watching to make sure that when he comes to us, that he doesn't steal anything. Why are you laughing? He'll do it. He'll steal a purse or shoes. Then Naomi took Ariadne into her care. Of course, the young woman was a stranger to sentimentality and was not going to spend her life babysitting her grandmother, as she said. Still, she did what she could for her. She brought surplus food when she stayed, gave away unnecessary things, kitchen utensils, but it was a war every time. Ariadne did not agree to take anything of value in her eyes, saying that such things were not for her, and tried to give her money for the rest. If Naomi wouldn't take it, Ariadne would slip bills or coins under her door. All she had to do was grit her teeth. But the real drama came when Ariadne fell seriously ill one day. Naomi had called her doctor and substituted at work to trick her into intercepting him in the hallway. Doctor, she said to the not young therapist, you as a grandmother examine, write a prescription for medication and give it to me. I'll buy everything. Because she won't spend on herself. And tell her that a new law came out and pensioners now medicines for free. They say that you will give your neighbor all the papers and she will only run to the pharmacy. I would have such a granddaughter, sighed the doctor. Nevertheless, Ariadne was seriously ill. She had a bilateral inflammation of the lungs, and she herself did not hope that she would recover. Naomi began to think that she should find Harvey and tell him that her mother was in trouble. She didn't have the man's address, and Ariadne just waved her neighbor away. Let him, he doesn't care about me. What could be more important than a mother? Naomi was amazed. His games, Ariadne covered her eyes. Let him play. I don't want him to curse me later. These days, however, Harvey himself decided to visit his mother. Naomi came home just as he was leaving. With Harvey, she had long been on your own, and now without delay approached him. Have you completely abandoned Aunt Alia? Why? Harvey didn't even understand. It was impossible not to notice that the old woman was ill. She even sat up in bed with difficulty, had no strength to put on a robe to go to the bathroom. A pot next to the bed, a stool filled with medicines. Why, am I a doctor? Harvey excused himself. You can call the clinic. The district doctor will come. He will help. What's that got to do with me? There was already a district doctor. Naomi attacked him. But you know, they don't treat old people much. And rightly so, grinned the guest. How old is the mother? She has already lived. Old people should make room for the young. I think so. Naomi was completely speechless. She noticed a bag in Harvey's hand, and in it a downy shawl, the same one she had given to Aunt Ale when she was ill. It was impossible to imagine that the old woman had decided to give it to her son. So Harvey had flattered himself on a good thing, thinking he could get some money for it. Naomi snatched the bag and began to smack Harvey. It was a pity that the handkerchief was soft, and a sensitive punishment, of course, could not get only indignation a little spilled out. Get out of here. I see now why you go to your mother to check if she is alive. Or you can put your paw on this kennel. It's a penny, but it's a penny you can lose. Marriage might have made a difference in Harvey's life, and at one time Ariadne secretly hoped so, especially since he had once had an affair. And although the girl was not at all what future mothers-in-law wanted their daughters-in-law to be, Ariadne nevertheless liked her very much. Natalie had come to their town while she was still in high school. Her father was in the military and her mother a theatrical costume designer. Usually an only child is babysat, but here was such a family that Natalie was left to fend for herself. If there was a theater or at least a house of culture in the place where the family was moving to, her mother, in love with her profession, was at work day and night. She was ready to work as a costume designer, a ticket distributor, a poster paste-up. The theater was her life, and if God had given her even a little talent, she would certainly become an actress. Natalie was not attracted to this life at all. The girl was not that beautiful, but with a face memorable, expressive, something she reminded Maya Plisitskaya. A child left to herself becomes independent early. Natalie had never been warned against anything, and somehow she had escaped disaster. She stood on a stool and cooked soup and was never scalded or burned. She was drawn to society, to children. All her free time was ready to hang around in the yard, waiting for someone to come out to play with her. Once she overheard the mother of one of her friends telling another woman in a low voice that Natalie had been walking around in a dirty dress for days, like a homeless girl, as if she had no parents. After that, she learned to wash and iron her own clothes, and no one ever reproached her for being a slob. And she also loved all kinds of animals. When she was very young, she picked up a raven that had fallen out of the nest and tried to teach it to fly. She began to orient herself in a peculiar way. Once her mother took her to visit her friend, and Natalie forgot her favorite toy dog. When she woke up the next morning, she realized that her dog was sick and lonely. It must be taken away. So the girl went to pick her up after kindergarten, and there were so many blocks to walk. How did she get there? How did she find the entrance? She went straight to a familiar apartment. A friend opened the door. "What's up, Natalie?" "I'm getting my dog." "Where's your mom?" "Mom will be here in a minute." And half an hour later, my mom was at the door. "They told me they took you away. But how did you get here?" After that, Natalie navigated very well in space. Even in the Bryant's forest, near the village where her grandmother lived, she was not afraid to get lost, as if she had a compass in her head. Later, she discovered a remarkable talent for working with animals. She was never bitten by dogs. They looked at her with loving eyes. Wherever she went, if there were animals in the house, they would always start petting Natalie. Even the ones the owners themselves considered wild and unsociable. Ariane just sighed. It was almost the first time she had ever had a fight with Harvey. "Who did you get instead of Natalie?" she said with a knife to her throat. "Is it a good thing? A girl like that loves you and you." "Come on, mother." Harvey was in a peaceful mood at first, and he tried to reduce it to a joke. "What's the matter?" "Well, Natalie is Natalie. It's time we took a break from each other." He'd never seen his mother so upset before. "Let me give you some money. Go to the capital. Look for her." Ariadne wailed. "Maybe you can persuade her to come back." "No way." "And you give me money." Harvey laughed. "Marina and I will not hurt. We are going out today. And so we'll go to the restaurant. We'll drink a glass to your health." Ariadne waved her hand and cried. Natalie never called her. Month after month, Ariadne met the girl's parents from time to time and asked if she had any news. She didn't call or write to us either. They shrugged. "I guess her life is more interesting there than it was here." The whole current generation is like that. They don't care about their elders. They only think about themselves. But Ariane felt that this was not the case. She thought glumly, referring to Natalie's father and mother, "I couldn't bear it if I had a girl who'd gone far away and never let me know about her. It's not a boy. Anything can happen. I'd walk on sleepers, but I'd get to my daughter, find out what's wrong with her." In the end, she'd given up all hope not only of seeing Natalie, but of finding out anything about her. Harvey's girlfriends didn't stay long, and Ariane couldn't remember their names. Her son brought other girls home to spend the night, and not every girl condescended to notice Harvey's quiet, uncomplaining mother, much less to help her. And then on a weeknight, the phone rang and Ariane heard Natalie's voice on the receiver. "Where are you?" She froze. Natalie said simply, "Don't worry, Aunt Katie. Everything's okay now. It's really okay now." And Natalie recounted what she'd been through during that time. She and her friend had parted ways in the capital. She had always been a good dancer, and she was on her way to Washington, D.C., already knowing where she would work in a private service group. She was going to be an Oriental dancer. She asked Natalie, but she knew she couldn't go that way. "I left when I was pregnant, Aunt Kathy," Natalie said. "That's why I was in a hurry. I knew Harvey wouldn't stay with me, and I didn't want to play the pity card and force him to sign. Remember, I told you I had my pride too, and I wanted to hide it from him and from my parents." And for me, Ariane asked in despair, wouldn't I have helped you? I would have taken you and the baby to my house. My God, that would be happiness for me. I would have a daughter and a granddaughter or a grandson. Who was born to you, Natasha? It was very difficult at first. Natalie didn't seem to hear the question. No, there's plenty of work. They'd offered me a job at the factory where they make paper. They gave me a place in a dormitory. I wanted to go there, but the work was physically demanding. I couldn't. I got a job as an administrator at a sports club. I was allowed to sleep there in the basement in a small room where the equipment was stored, but how cold it was there in winter. I was forbidden to bring a heater due to fire safety violations, and at that time I had a shepherd dog. God knows whose dog was running near our club, hungry, skinny ribs sticking out. I used to feed it. And then I decided to take it to my room for the night, so we kept each other warm. Anyway, Aunt Kathy, I had twins, 2 girls, but only one survived. And the doctors had no hope of saving her. She was 7 months old, weak. Ariane could only cry quietly into the phone. How they didn't take her away from me, I don't know, Natalie continued. But after that, my superiors, out of pity, I guess, came around. They promoted me to a higher position, and I was able to rent a place for me and Christine. And in the summer, I went to the same girlfriend who got a job at the circus. Where? Ariane choked up. Well, to that one you remember, with which in the capital together went to the capital, patiently explained Natalie. They had a place vacated. The artist left one, who worked with dogs. My girlfriend and I hung out in the same trailer, where there were 2 tiny rooms. And 12 poodles came under my command. Trained dogs. They knew what to do. I was the one who had to learn, not them. I remember the first time I went out in front of an audience. It's good that I can't see very well, but I realized that there were a lot of people looking at me. And then I didn't only work with dogs. An artist has to be a jack of all trades, especially in small groups. Now I'm doing Oriental dance. I walk on glass, burn my hands. We have a good ballet master. He taught me everything. And it's beautiful. But I only after a while began to live dance. And at first it was just counting in my head. 4 steps there, 4 here, and 8 back. Stupidly repeating learned moves. I got used to the guys right away. Until she went into the arena, she was in awe. Oh, the artists, the people who came down from heaven. I couldn't believe I'd be allowed to be with them. I only thought, if only someday. And I said to myself, no, never. And when you get a job, it's like a bar above your head, and you go up to it. I never had enough. I didn't learn enough to take care of horses. I want something new. I want to learn more. I've been a costume designer, then ballet, and I asked myself, well, how long are you going to dance? While your face is young? It's a hell of a lot of work, catastrophic. But when you get to the artistic unit, it's more interesting. You can express what you want. After that, I have a shell that I rotate, and there's fire on the edges. This one's pretty heavy. I looked, people have spun it before me and nobody got killed. It's also hot. If you hold the gloves in one place, they melt. At first, I went out with fingerless gloves. I wanted to show I was a cool girl. It felt like picking up an iron, and you can't quit. I grabbed the edges spinning. The bubbles on my fingers popped and immediately burst. A crust was formed. All right, I think it's good that there are no bubbles, but the next day I was already wearing gloves. Hands are a working tool. You have to take care of them. Then I worked in another team. I still remember it now. There was a young man there. They stabbed him, unfortunately. They said, "You're not needed. There's nothing to see." But we had a strong show. The artists were all professionals, masters of sports in rhythmic gymnastics, champions in karate. And our goal was that not only grandmothers and kids would come to the circus for cotton candy, but also young people. All our show was for young people. People came to see us. It was a colorful show. It was like a whole team. We worked for an hour and a half and everyone was in the arena. No one sat in our seats. It's a shame it's over. It was a pity for the labor, and we were always without money. We didn't have enough for anything. And I have a child growing up. In Washington, you have to live somehow, pay for the subway, food. So I went to study to be a waitress. I worked for a while. Being a waitress from bell to bell is hard. I could do anything. I could even replace the cook, but it was hard. In the circus, there are rehearsals, performances, but there's also free time to just live. And the atmosphere in the circus is different for me. In poverty, without raising my head from poverty, I thought, what next? Go back home. I have no friends or enemies left in it. Life doesn't even smell the same there. It has a different pulse. Then I tried another group of people. Came to the circus and realized I'm never leaving Washington again. We're already with the best performers. And that was the bar too. The bar was set. But how do you stay in DC? I stayed at a horse base where the stunt guys were practicing. I got there, unpacked my suitcase, and I stayed. I didn't want to train with horses at the time. You get used to them, and then to leave, to tear your soul to pieces. I was still working as a waitress, and it bored the hell out of me. In the end, I thought I'd ride a horse. I rode one day, another day. The girl helped me. She showed me how to sit, how to hold on. Slowly, I settled in among the stuntmen. I know some things I don't. At first, I was afraid to even go near the horses. I got nervous. Every day I asked myself, why am I doing all this? Then I see my hands are still there. No one's blowing my fingers out, and I'm working. Will I ever see you again? Ariane asked breathlessly. Natalie sighed. I think I'll see you, Aunt Katie. I have nothing but good feelings for you. You've never hurt me with a word or a look. Never reproached me for anything. As you know, I don't want to go back to your town. All this time, my parents never called me once. They wanted a quiet old age, a full house and evenings to walk hand in hand. They got it. And why would they want a daughter with no husband, no kid, a circus girl? Fuck it. Have you fallen out of love with Harvey? Ariane asked. And you won't ask about him. Another sigh, patient. Well, said Natalie, tell me about his life. Ariane began to recount, but she had nothing to brag about. He was still an avid gambler, no steady woman, but at least he wasn't in jail. With his way of life, he would have been in jail by now. I feel sorry for you, Natalie said. Your son won't change even in his old age, and you'll never get support from him. Well, wait, when Christina grows up, we'll take you to our house and you'll grow old near your granddaughter. Ariane smeared tears on her cheeks. Natalie never called again, but Ariane's life changed from that day on, filled with meaning. She hadn't been stingy before, but she knew she couldn't spend an extra penny. There would be nowhere to get it. Now if she read Balzac, she'd think she could be a worthy wife to Papa Grande. She was living on such a pittance that Harvey stopped eating at home. It's impossible to take this chowder in your mouth, he complained. Water by water, grain by grain, chasing with a club. At least make sandwiches. His mother cut him a piece of bread, smeared it with cheap mayonnaise, and spread onions in circles on top. Shit, I'm going to go to a burger place. At least I'll have a proper meal. You're out of your mind, feeding us like beggars. He didn't give any money for food, and he didn't bring any groceries home. It was his way of saving money. He was never afraid of being broke. He knew his mother would feed him no matter what happened. What are you saving for? Once he couldn't stand it, because now you spend nothing on food, you must have some money left. For the funeral, Ariadne answered briefly. Do you want a black granite monument? Or are you thinking of bribing your way into some famous cemetery like Vaganka or Novodevichi? But when the hour comes, I'm sure you won't have a dime to spare. I'll see from there, from the other world, that they're collecting money for my funeral like a beggar, and I'll burn with shame. Would you care if you were already there? Harvey laughed. No, mother, it's all nonsense. We have to live while we're here. Let's gut your stash, order something tasty at the restaurant, have food and drink delivered to our house, and sit down. Ariadne only shook her head fearfully. If Harvey had known that she didn't really care about the funeral, she wanted to make it up to Natalie and her little granddaughter, who had already suffered so much. Ariadne dreamed of putting away as much money as she could and then giving it to the girl. She began to think about what else she could do for a living. As long as she was healthy, she sold seedlings in spring and summer crops from the cottage, knitted and sewed toys in winter, funny cats, bunnies, at least some, but a penny. And those toys, which succeeded her better than others, she hid for her granddaughter. But she never had to give her granddaughter presents. One day she met Natalie's parents again, and now she looked down on them, thinking she knew more about their daughter than they did. The couple had grown very old, and Natalie's mother looked especially bad. "We're in trouble," she said as soon as Ariane said hello. Natalie had crashed on the set. "How?" Ariane cried out, not recognizing her own voice. "How?" Interrupted her mother with some irritation. "She was a great stunt woman, did you know? She jumped off a cliff, and they didn't calculate it. She had complicated fractures, and they were putting her back together, as they say, piece by piece. I went to DC. I wanted to take my granddaughter to see her, but I didn't." Natalie asked one of her friends to watch her daughter. "I never got to see Christina. I thought maybe at least at this moment Natalie would tell me who the girl's father was. No, she didn't say a word about that bastard." Ariadne lowered her head, her cheeks scalded with boiling water. And when Natalie was discharged, she packed her things and left with her daughter. Obviously, her old job was over. She was on disability. God knows where she took Christina. "How long has it been?" Ariadne asked. "It's been a year now. And you didn't try to find her?" "We tried. How could we not? We asked friends, doctors at the hospital. Maybe she said something to someone." "No, they're all just water under the bridge." One of her friends seemed to know she had edema, but she didn't say anything. "She's just gone." "So that's the way it is. If she doesn't want to see us, why should we bother?" "But it's your daughter," Ariadne said forcefully. "Do you realize how much a sick person needs? The same medicines, and how will she bring up a child in such a state? Why are you telling us off? Did you raise your son well? There's nothing I can do about mine. He's lost. Even if he dresses well and doesn't drink, he's a lost soul. And Natalie's your golden girl. If you find any trace of her, let me know. I'll take her in. Or if she wants me to go to her, I'll help raise my daughter. I have a pension. I won't sit on my neck." "Are you crazy?" Looking her straight in the eye, Natalie's mother asked, "What makes you think we'll give up our daughter to you so easily? Do you have one? A daughter?" Ariane held her gaze for a few seconds, and then she grinned as hard as she had ever grinned before and walked away. She knew that, of course, Natalie's parents would not only not let her know if they had any news of her daughter, but after today's conversation, they would probably stop saying hello to her on the street. It would have been possible to be more cunning, to butter her up, to flatter her, to begin to visit the house at least occasionally, and then sooner or later, some news would have appeared. But Ariane did not regret that it had happened that way. For too long she had resented Natalie. If she herself was childless with a living adult son, Natalie had been an orphan with living parents since childhood. Did Harvey regret breaking up with his childhood friend? If he did, he never told anyone about it. And most likely, he was not even to any sentiments. He was the kind of guy who thought women were second-class citizens. And if any of his buddies paid excessive attention to his girlfriend or excessively pampered her, Harvey despised it all in his heart as a weakness unworthy of a real man. No, he could be charming when he appeared somewhere in the casino well-dressed, young, witty. There were ladies who were mollycoddled by him, and there were old ladies who were not averse to having an affair with him. Take advantage of such a rich lady and then make her humiliate herself, begging for attention, hoping for dates is what Harvey liked most of all. He himself did not get attached to anyone in his heart, and these fools tried to please him, made gifts, took care of him. He only indulgently accepted all this, and if a new friend became too intrusive or worse, decided to take offense at him for something, began to reproach him, he immediately broke off relations with her without any regret. New suits, money on the account, and all sorts of nice little things that endowed him with women in love with him. A purse, expensive cologne, a gold bracelet in the form of a chain. Another blessed woman hoped to chain him to herself. Once in a while, Harvey wondered while he was young whether he should choose an older woman and marry her, but he kept stalling and stalling. He valued his freedom too much, his lack of any obligations. And then he met Cecilia. She was the daughter of a local businessman, not too big, but still he could give his only daughter everything she wanted. Cecilia graduated from high school somewhere in Europe, and for the vacations, before continuing her studies at the university, came to her father. She ended up at Harvey's favorite casino by accident. Her parents introduced her to peers from good families, with whom she would not be bored to spend time. And the guys had fun, using the summer days to the fullest. They had already been on a yacht and picnics at Dacas, And now they accidentally wandered into a casino. They say if you see someone you like, it's like chemistry. That's what happened to Harvey when he saw Cecilia, small, fragile, in a light-colored dress. In short, he forgot about everything else. Taking advantage of the fact that there were many people around, he stealthily approached closer. His buddies urged the girl to play roulette. She refused. She said she was awkward. She was always unlucky. Finally, she gave up, and she lost. I told you, she shrugged her shoulders. Good thing she bet a little. Strange, Harvey came up to her. Fortune usually likes newcomers. Let me stand next to you. I bring good luck. You bet your ass. No, the girl continued to refuse. Don't doubt it. Harvey smiled meaningfully and touched her hand for a moment. Let's check it out. God knows what he hoped for. All his assurances could fall to ashes. But a miracle happened, and this time Cecilia won. And so began their acquaintance. Harvey could make a truly irresistible impression when he wanted to, and he arranged it so that when they said goodbye, they exchanged phone numbers. And Harvey called the girl the same evening. Something happened to him that had never happened before. He fell in love. This young girl had everything he wanted and didn't have. At home, she was carried in his arms. Cecilia had traveled all over the world, spoke English more fluently, and generally belonged to that mysterious world in which Harvey. He tried to call Cecilia first thing in the morning to see what her plans were for the day. Not so long ago, he had hated such intrusiveness on the part of women, and now he was becoming like an obsessive admirer himself. However, Cecilia was still favorable to him and often agreed to go out with him. Harvey invited her to a restaurant, then to the movies, then to the equestrian club as he heard that she is fond of horses. Once he wanted to give her an extreme entertainment parachute jump, but her father strongly objected and told his daughter to spend as little time as possible with this unreliable type. He even became interested in Harvey's personality, made inquiries about him through his own channels, and then finally told Cecilia to get rid of such a suitor. The girl delicately, trying not to offend Harvey, began to refuse meetings. She referred to the business, to the promises made earlier. Once said that now goes with a friend to the theater. Harvey decided to check it out, took tickets for the same performance, although he had never been to the theater. He sat down in the back row, with a small pearlescent binoculars, such as they rented to everyone. He saw Cecilia about 10 minutes before it started. She had indeed come with a friend. But together with them was a young man, tall, handsome, looking like Harvey Siskaritz. All three, cheerfully and casually chatting, went to the best seats in the parlor. Cecilia was dazzlingly good, in an evening dress with open shoulders, with her hair up high. Until this evening, he had never seen her wearing makeup, except for a little lipstick. Now she was a real beauty, a lady of high society. Diamond earrings swayed along her cheeks. With her companion, Cecilia behaved quite differently from the way she behaved with him, Harvey. It was evident that she really liked this young man. And if Harvey were to come down and say hello to her now, Cecilia would probably answer him with a slight nod of the head, and that was all. He meant nothing in her life. That night he gambled as he had never gambled before, and he lost in a landslide. And to his misfortune, to serious people, hell knows what he was thinking at the time. It was probably just anger and revenge. He knew that the summer would soon be over and Cecilia would leave for England. He wanted to follow her, but before he did, he wanted to be her boyfriend thoroughly, with his feet, preferably. Instead, serious people threatened to kill him if he didn't pay his debt on time. And he knew it wasn't a joke or an attempt to scare him. That's when he went to his mother, whom he hadn't visited for a long time. His mother was even more scared than he was, but she wouldn't give him the funeral money he knew about. She said briefly, "Don't look for it, you won't." Instead, she sold everything she had, her apartment, her dacha. The last one was especially pitiful to her mother. She roared for it like a dead man. She even told Harvey, "Maybe you can insulate my house. Then I don't need any housing at all. I will live here." He just waved me off. "Old, you already winter in the cottages. I don't know who is loitering here. If they see the light, they'll break in, slap you on the back of the head, and that's it. No way." Ariane calmed down a little only when she learned that the dacha was ready to take a neighbor with whom she was on good terms. On herself, the old woman waved goodbye, was ready to be satisfied with the smallest. That's why she agreed to a cubby hole in the basement, just to save her son from bad people. It was the usual imperceptible feat of a mother, which is so rarely appreciated by children. Harvey didn't. He came less and less often, mostly when he was losing. Though not so long ago he had vowed to Ariadne that he would quit gambling. Cecilia had gone to her England and had forgotten him. From a few mutual acquaintances heard rumors that her romance with that young man is developing. He will go to her for Christmas, and then perhaps and completely move to London. They will rent an apartment. Harvey looked bad, hulking, his clothes hanging off him, his eyes burning with an unhealthy fire. Ariadne could only pour him a full bowl of soup and cry quietly and stroke his shoulder. And of late, two things had happened in her life. The first one, which was more important to her than anything else afterward. And the second, bitter but inevitable, Ariadne finally went blind. Old age, as they say, is not a joy, but on the contrary, a very big pig. On those days when she couldn't get out of bed, her neighbor Natalie visited her most often. She brought some food and almost forced Ariadne to eat. "Why are you wasting your time on me?" Ariadne said with tears in her eyes. "I don't want to be a burden to anyone." Without talking, Aunt Kathy, Ariadne sat down beside the bed. "You need your strength." "For what? Who needs me? And when will God finally take me away?" Naomi was blowing on her spoon. "What God has planned for us, only He knows. And the better you feel, the easier it is to live. So go ahead, start the porridge. There's milk and butter and sugar. Everything you need to get back on your feet. But tell me about your love. That's what I'm wondering. Or is it too painful for you? I never thought I'd have an affair like this, that a man like that would pay attention to me. Although a fortune teller told me in Fisherman's Market that he'll have such a husband that you won't believe that he chose you. It's not a husband, but still. He lived in our boarding house and even on the same floor with me, but I saw him for the first time on the seafront. He was standing with his back to me, looking at the sea. And you know, he was attractive, tall, athletically built, like an artist or a dancer, already very tanned, black t-shirt and safety pants, biceps, and a wave of blonde hair so thick it looked like he had a hat on his head. I had always been a bad swimmer, afraid to go far into the sea, waist deep at most. But that day, for some reason, I didn't care about swimming. I kept looking at the spot on the beach where he had thrown his towel. He undressed and went towards the sea, as if he hadn't seen it for a long time. He opened his arms towards it, as if he wanted to embrace it, and swam far away beyond the boys. The lifeguards were yelling at him to come back. I admired this man, but I didn't even think he talked to me. And in the evening, when my new acquaintances and I were watching a movie in an open theater, Archie came and sat next to me on a vacant seat. And that was it. I stopped understanding what was happening on the screen, stopped thinking. I just felt him next to me. And I knew that my face was burning, terribly burning, my cheeks were scalding, but there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. I don't know why he chose me. Maybe there was some kind of trickery to it. That's what I'm thinking now in hindsight. He sensed something about me. I mean, resort romances are such a thing. And he was going to have a resort romance. If he picked a girl with a little more nerve, she'd have been calling, writing, or even showing up at his house. It would have been difficult. He had no intention of divorcing his wife. You see, Natalie, he loved her. Men do that when they love their spouse. And all these cheating affairs are like a good dinner at a restaurant. They have nothing to do with feelings. Her name was Maria, and he almost never mentioned her name to me, but you can feel it when there's genuine tenderness, and he would break through at times. He'd say, "I often catch cold with Maria," or "Maria started to renovate the house, and she just kicked me out so I wouldn't get in the way. I'm afraid she'll torture herself with this damn repair. She's a perfectionist." And you fell in love with him in spite of all this. Naomi asked, "I've seen your cards when you were young, Aunt Kathy. You were very pretty. And here, you knew he wasn't going to marry, and yet." "Yes, I did. I thought I'd rather do it once in my life with the man I loved. And love can't be ordered. And if I remember something before I die, then." As we walked with him at night along the edge of the sea, holding hands, and it seemed to me that we are going to our life and always be together, and there will be no one but us. We made no plans beyond tomorrow, and we had no day after tomorrow. In the evening, When we fell asleep, we talked about where we'd go tomorrow. Go on a tour, go for a walk around the city, or maybe a boat trip. Or not get out of bed at all. It's like I was drunk without wine. There's nothing more dizzying than love. I gave him a coral as a farewell gift. They sold them everywhere. A branch of coral. It was so beautiful and so fragile, like what was happening between us. Maybe he didn't even drive it home. It crumbled in a suitcase somewhere and he threw the debris, the dust, in the trash. All right, I understand about the affair, Naomi said, but did he never think he was being mean to you? The thing is, my eyes were so bright around him. He must have thought he was giving me great joy. He was. But he ruined your life, Naomi exclaimed. He didn't know I was pregnant, Ariane argued meekly. But he could have imagined it would happen. You left home to raise his child. You put your life on this poor Kolka, which now you just finished. After all, everything could have turned out very differently. A good husband, children. You would not be hunched over from morning to night to earn an extra penny. Don't you blame Archie at all now? No, Ariadne answered simply. I think my youth and my happiness ended the moment he got on the train. Then there was only the sense of duty to raise a son, to put him on his feet. And now there's more. Well, you know. Both women were silent for a moment. How did you find her, Natalie? Naomi asked. I searched and searched. Ariadne shrugged bitterly. I searched for years. I wrote to one to another. And then someone gave me the address of a friend of hers. She didn't answer my letter, so I went to Washington. At first, that friend wouldn't even talk to me, especially when I told her I was Harvey's mom. You see how it all gets passed down. You said Archie ruined my life, and then his son turns out to have ruined another woman's life. And then you. And then I just knelt under the window of her house, and I told her I'd stay there until she told me where Natalie was. Late at night, it was cold, and there was a light on in the window, and then this friend came out with Natalie's card. She shoved it in my face and said, Do you remember what she was like? Look at what she's become. And that's when I cried. I just burst into tears. My friend looked at me for a long time, and then she wrote Natalie's address and phone number in pencil on the back of the photo. But it was too late. Do you know how Archie's life turned out? Well, of course not. It was indirectly through mutual acquaintances. They didn't know he was my lover, that I had a child with him. They were just friends of his family. He'd been doing well for years. A house, children, his beloved wife. Maybe after me, he had a dozen more such resort romances, which he safely hid from his wife. And then she got seriously ill. So now, as far as I know, he's a widower. So maybe he could help Natalie. She's a lot like me, and she knew the Archie story. She wouldn't take help from a man like that. He wouldn't have offered. He cut me out of his life a long time ago. The minute he got on that train, it was over for both of us then. Only in different ways. For me, my life. For him, a fling and a nice vacation. There was no one home that day. Ariane sat quietly in a chair near the window, though it could only be called a window at sidewalk level. It was always half dark in the room during the day. But now Ariane was playing solitaire, something Naomi had taught her recently, just to pass the time. Besides, it was fun to make a wish every time it came out or not. The old woman was looking forward to a few peaceful hours of peace and quiet when Harvey showed up. He had always looked bad lately. His mother had no doubt that now he was not only gambling, but drinking. His face was puffy, of an unhealthy purple hue. Dressed not just carelessly, things are often dirty. It was evident that the man had not bought anything for himself for a long time and had worn out what he had to. This time he was also disheveled, jacket on the chest unbuttoned, shirt too. You can see the bare chest. Mother, he started from the doorstep. Where's your funeral, Mother? What's wrong? Ariadne was frightened. Give them here. I need them now. What's wrong? That's all Mother needed to know. What kind of... Wait a minute. Harvey did not recognize his mother's voice. It was dead. Take the money. Just sit down and listen to me for 5 minutes. I don't care whether I unbuckle it or not. I don't really have anything to live for. What, Mother? Are you so sorry about the money? Harvey was in a good mood now, and he readily sat down. Don't be sad, as they say. Money isn't what makes you happy. It's a cliche, of course, but it's true. I don't need money, Ariadne continued. You see how I live. a little better than on bread and water, and that's good enough for me. I wanted to talk to you about something else." "Well," he responded, "did you know Natalie died?" She asked him straight out. What the hell? The same Natalie? My Natalie?" Harvey's mouth dropped open in amazement. "The same one, only not yours anymore, of course." And Ariadne, looking not even at her son, but somewhere in front of her, began to tell Harvey about Natalie's life, about how selflessly the girl loved him, how out of pride she did not tell him that she was expecting a child. She had left in utter despair, in fact nowhere, when he had traded her for another. As if to herself, Ariadne told her how Natalie had spent the winter in a cold cellar, how she had lost her child, but she didn't return home with the second baby because her parents didn't need her very much either. How abruptly her life changed when she joined the circus and then became a part-time stunt woman. And how then a severe trauma left her no choice. She couldn't afford to let anyone take care of her. She had no money for treatment abroad, no way to recover. She went to a remote village to live out her life. In fact, she's my family, not you. She didn't want to burden anyone either, didn't want to be on anyone's back. I'm the same way. I asked you for something once, remember? Sometimes I can't sleep at night because of the pain, and I don't have money for medicine. Did I take a penny from you? You don't know what it's like to take care of an old mother. So she started to drink from such a life. Many people drink in the villages nowadays. Of course, she didn't turn into what you are now. She's still a human being. Only her health collapsed, and a few years ago she left. She left behind a daughter, one of two twins, the one that survived. They named the girl Christina. She was born mute. She lives in her mother's house. I don't know what pennies she makes. She can't go to the city to get an education. She can't find a job. She's never lived a city life, and there's no one to help her. So I've been saving all this money for her. I gave this room to her so that when I die, it'll be a little bit of a reprieve for Natalie. So if you take it all away from me now, I'm gonna die. I don't even have to put my hands on myself to do it. When an old man has nothing left to live for, God takes him away. Well, so be it. I'm tired, Harvey, for my long life, if you knew how tired I am. To work without respite all my century. I want eternal rest, as they say when they say goodbye. Sleep well? I thought I'd sleep well. But if you take the money away now and piss it away, I won't be at peace there either. Well, why am I trying to make you feel sorry for me? It's no use. Go on. Harvey sat at the table and cried. He hadn't cried in a long time, not since he was a boy. And now the tears were flowing and flowing, and he couldn't stop them. The wad of money, tied with a rubber band, was still lying on the table. Selena was brought up in a good family. Her parents were intellectuals. She never gave a second thought to anything because mom and dad could always work things out. She had grandparents who could also help her. So that's what you're doing now. Her father came up to her and saw her flipping through a magazine. What do I do? The girl asked. She was 5 years old at the time. I don't know. In your time, I was already reading scientific magazines, doing something, inventing, her father told her. Daddy, everything that had to be invented was invented. Little Selena laughed. When it was time to go to the first grade, she saw how the other children were happy about it, but she herself had no joy. The family lived in a big house that had been inherited from her grandfather. There they had everything they needed to live. Not to say that the girl was spoiled, but that she believed that always and everything in life is brought on a silver platter. It was so. Daughter, why don't you go anywhere? Her mother used to ask her. Like what? She looked up at her at that moment. Then she was in the 7th grade, and all the girls of the same age were already going somewhere with companies. Well, your girlfriends go out, the woman said. They need to go there. Let them go there, and I don't want to go anywhere. It was obvious that she was not interested. Our child is growing up strangely, the husband said to his wife. Why? She didn't understand it. She doesn't want to study, and she doesn't want to go out. It's unknown what she needs, he explained to her. Well, she is still young. Soon she will grow up. She will understand everything, the woman answered him. She always stood up for her daughter, so that everyone who knew them said that even if Selena goes on a car, hit a tree, it will be the fault of the tree. And that's all the girl was happy about. "Go, Emma's there to see you," her mom would say when her friend came over. The girls had been friends since kindergarten. They were thick as thieves. Today, they went out into the garden and talked until the evening. Interesting, Selena's father wondered. "Dad, we'll probably figure out for ourselves what's interesting and what's not," her daughter answered him. He only pressed his lips and left. One day, the man came home from work and told his wife that he was being sent to Prague for a scientific conference. "How long are you going for?" The wife realized that she would have to stay home alone. "No, you're wrong. I'm not the one going." He looked puzzled. "Who is?" She looked at him. "We're going." He smiled. Wow, she was very happy about this news. "Pack your things. In a week we will fly out," said her husband. Yes, it was certainly happy news, but the woman kept thinking about Selena, how she would be alone. "Mom, what are you worried about me? Everything will be fine," the girl told her. "Maybe you could move in with Emma while we're gone," the woman suggested. "How about she moves in with me?" Selena said. "Okay, I'll talk to Emma's parents if there's anything you need or aren't happy with, so you can go to her," Mom finally said. That was fine. The girl was glad she'd be alone for a while without anyone bothering her. When her parents left the first night, Selena called Emma, asking her to come visit, not to do anything bad, to throw a party or call the guys. Just the two of them sitting at home, eating ice cream, watching movies and laughing. "It's so nice at your place," Emma said to her friend. "Move in with me while your parents are away," Selena told her. "I'd love to, but do you think my parents would let me go?" They talked to each other. Thus passed a day, the second, when her parents were not at home, and now Selena realized why she lived with them and why they were necessary. There was no one to go to the store, no one to cook. She had to do everything herself, and the girl just didn't know how to do much. When it was 2 days before her parents returned, she decided to clean the house to make her mom happy when they arrived. Emma came to help as well. Together they did it quickly, and now they were sitting happily. "Is there anything else to eat?" Emma asked. "Nothing at all," Selena answered honestly, because for the last few days she had been eating bread and sausage if it was possible to buy it. "And how do you live here?" asked her friend. "Let's go to my place." Since she called her, they went to visit Emma. When Selena got home in the evening, she saw a police car outside the house. She didn't realize what might have happened in her absence. She walked past it, thinking that perhaps it wasn't her house they had come to visit. However, as she started to enter the gate, a young guy called out to her. "Selena?" He called out to her and got out of the car. "Yeah," she turned to him. "Why are you so scared?" He came up to her. He wasn't even 20 years old. "Let's go inside," she called out to him. So what happened? She was only 13 now, but she seemed to be bolder and more brazen than the guy who had come to her. "Selena, your parents were in a car accident when they were abroad," he spoke softly. "Is it true?" It seemed to her as if none of this was true. "I'm sorry to break the news to you, but it's true." He sat like that, unmoving. She sat across from him, staring at him for a long time. What's going to happen to me now? She supposed it would, but she wanted to hear it from him. "If you have relatives, they'll probably pick you up, otherwise." He looked up at her. "So, do I have to go with you?" she asked him. "If you want to, I won't go anywhere while you pack your things, and then we'll go. I won't leave you here alone." Selena thought about the 10 days she had been in this house alone, and now suddenly he couldn't leave her here. She didn't say anything else, just listened to the young man and everything. At the funeral, the girl was with 2 women, but Max, that was the lieutenant's name, kept up with them too. He liked Selena so much, he was afraid to admit it to himself, but he never took a step away from her. Perhaps it was pity for the girl. He couldn't explain. Selena was placed in an orphanage, where the boy took her personally. "Tell me something about yourself," he asked her on the way. "Why are you picking on me?" She turned to him. "Just want to talk, get to know you better." He shrugged, casual. "And why would you do that?" She didn't understand. The only thing Selena realized now was that she was being taken to a government facility where she would no longer have what she had at home. So she folded her arms across her chest, proudly silent, not wanting to talk to anyone. "Well, you realize it's not my fault that this happened to you," Max told her. "And I don't blame you," she answered without turning around. And why do you behave like that? He tried to talk to her, but the girl did not want to talk to him. When they drove up to the fence, she abruptly got out of the car and headed for the entrance. Wait, he ran after her, carrying her bag. Why are you bothering with me? Why do you have to do this? She asked him again and again. Selena, he stopped her. What? She turned to him. Can I come and visit you sometimes? The guy asked. Why? What are you, my dad, my mom? She couldn't understand. What's daddy got to do with it? What's mommy got to do with it? I feel like I'm responsible for you, he told her. You know what? Shove your responsibility somewhere else. She turned around and went into the building. Max couldn't just leave her here. He needed to talk to one of the faculty members. He found a woman, talked to her, told her he would be visiting Selena. Tanya was against it, after all. There was a man in uniform standing in front of her. After that, Max went. He wanted to talk to the girl some more, but she was nowhere to be found. He left the building of the orphanage, stood on the porch, thinking that he could really be so caught up in this little girl. But some paternal feeling or something made him think of her all the time. He drove to work, wondering what it would be like for a girl from such a family, who had lived in such a house before, who had never needed anything. And now she just ended up in an orphanage. What's going to happen to her? How's she going to live? Hello, is Emma home? She called her friend, because now Selena had to go to another school. Selena, is that you? The woman asked her. Yes, she answered her friend's mom. You know, we probably shouldn't talk anymore, she mumbled and hung up. What? Stood and looked at the girl on the tube. Then she was not the same for them now. It was hurtful. She went to the room where they put her. There she just fell on the bed, and only now gave vent to tears. She realized how bad it was to be without parents, when no one would support you. No one would say a good word. No one would stroke your head. Someone approached, but now the girl couldn't let anyone near her. She was like a small, intimidated animal in a big cage. Selena decided to call Max. He was the only one she had left. She found his phone number in her purse, dialed it. Hello, she said through gritted teeth. Selena. The young man was pleased. Yeah, she mumbled. It feels like you were forced to call me. He was glad for the call, but he could hear her talking to him. Can you come over? The girl asked in the same tone. Sure, he quickly agreed. Not an hour later, Max was already where the girl now lived. Hello, she was as disgruntled as he had left her here. Hey, how's it going? He came closer. Nothing, not good, she said. What's wrong? He worried and took her farther away to a bench to sit. Why do I have to be here? She didn't understand and stared at the ground. You understand, life is unpredictable. This can happen to anyone. He didn't know how to support her. Take me away from here, Selena begged the lieutenant. You understand, I can't do that. I'm not relative, no one for you, if only to adopt, but that would look funny and suspicious. He started to smile. I don't see anything funny, she looked away. Well, be patient a little. Soon you'll finish 9 grades, you'll enter, and then we'll think of something, Max promised her. You're just like the rest of them. She jumped up from the bench and walked back into the building. Selena, he shouted at her, catching up. Get off, she waved the young man away. But Max didn't want to get behind her. He came to the orphanage very often, brought something, but the girl never came to him once. Not only that she was in transition, but the change of environment affected her behavior. Whoever approached her did not say something. She did not want to listen to anyone. She didn't want to make friends either. They seemed more stupid than her. Selena, come to my place. Let's talk, her counselor asked her. I don't want to. She really didn't want to, because she knew that she would be questioned there, and she didn't want to talk about anything. We'll just draw sit. I'll see what you can do. The woman realized that the girl urgently needed help. I don't want to, she kept saying. Well, then draw me something, the woman asked her. If there was time, there was a complete denial of everything. Selena didn't want to study either. If before she was still doing something at school, now she didn't know why she was doing it at all. Hey, she was sitting under the steps at night. When she heard a voice, she flinched. Who's there? She couldn't see who was talking to her. It's me, Grandma Betty. The cleaning lady came out of hiding. What do you want? Selena didn't understand. I want to talk to you. The woman approached her quietly. Did anyone ask me if I wanted to talk to anyone? At that moment, the girl cried again, so much so that she was moaning. "Come on, you little girl." Grandma Betty came up to her. She was beloved by many for her kindness. "I feel so bad," Selena cried. "I understand everything. Open up to people. It will be easier," said the woman, and stroked her head. I don't want to," sobbed the girl. "I understand," shook her head. After this conversation, every night Selena went under the stairs to meet there with Baba Betty. She would talk to her, and it would get easier. "Selena, go, there's someone there to see you," they told her. "There he goes again." She sighed and walked outside. "Hi," Max greeted her cheerfully. "Why are you coming to see me?" she asked him. "Just to take care of her." He handed her a bag. Selena always took what he brought her, but she didn't want to talk to the young man himself. "Thank you." She looked inside the package. "What do you do?" Max was interested. He was really interested. What did it matter? Nothing. She sat looking straight in front of her. Her look was indifferent. "Are you studying?" Like a father sat and questioned the girl. "Not us," she laughed. "And why?" Deliberately, strictly told her the young man. "And who are you to me?" She turned and looked at him. "I want you to be okay." He looked at her like an adult, which he was. "Look, I don't want anything at all. Why do I need all this?" She wrinkled her nose. "Selena, you need to study. You'll finish school. I'll help you with admission. And without education, you won't even get a job," Max said seriously. "That's it. I don't want to listen to your lectures." She got up and wanted to go back to where she didn't really want to. "Why do you keep running away?" He followed her with a quick step. "Don't come again." Without turning around, she told him. Max was very offended because he wanted only good things for this girl. The guy walked her to the porch, then turned around and walked out the gate. "Who is it that keeps coming to see you?" Grandma Betty asked her when she saw them on the street. "Oh, that's right. Selena waved her off today as well." She went to her room, lay down on her bed, put her hands behind her head, looked up at the ceiling. "Would you like to go out tonight?" Her roommate asked her. "Why are you asking?" Selena asked her without turning around. "Just calling," she answered. "Nothing happens for nothing." Selena had known that for a long time. "So what?" The girl didn't answer her question. "You know, I never went out before. I spent all my time at home, but now I'm thinking I really want to go out." Selena turned sideways and looked at Ariana. "Come on, make up your mind." She sat and painted her lips. "How do you do it?" Selena asked. "If you come with us tonight, you'll find out." The girl smiled enigmatically. "Okay, help me in," laid Selena on her back again. She realized that there was a protest inside her. A protest to everything, to the tutors, to the teachers, to Max. No one had done anything bad to her. She just resented fate. Why did it do this to her? In the evening, when everyone was gathered, one by one they climbed out through the window in the corridor. Someone watched that none of the educators did not go. The others were running away at the same time. The fence was not very hard to overcome, and now they are already free. "Are you okay?" Ariana approached Selena. "Yeah," she answered her. Perhaps today she went with everyone not just because she wanted to go with them, but just because it was like she wanted to be free. And now they were walking through the streets of the city, and they seemed happy. "If they see you tomorrow, what will you say?" Ariana asked her. "What will they ask?" Selena was doing all this for the first time, so she didn't know anything yet. Okay, I get it. When they ask you were alone, don't rat anyone out." Looked her roommate at her. "I hear you," nodded Selene. They gathered in some strange place. It was either a garage or a shed. The guys took out some bottles and started diluting some of it with water. Some of it just poured into glasses. The girls along with them. Selena looked at them, and she didn't want to do anything bad, but she wanted to mess with everyone and everything so badly that when she was offered, she didn't refuse. She took a sip. "It's okay. You'll get used to it later," laughed everyone else who was here. "I don't think I'll ever get used to it." Put the girl's glass on the table. "Girls, do you want me to sing?" One of the guys offered, and then he got a guitar from somewhere. "Wow." Selena looked at them all. "What did you want? How long we've been here?" "We've already got everything set up," laughed the girls. At first, Selena thought that she would not be accepted into the company because she was a homely girl and could do something wrong. But when the guys showed her that they were treating her in a friendly way, she turned on and relaxed. she started having fun as well. "Do you want one?" One of the guys held out a pack to her. "I don't know how to," she told him. "Come on, it's really easy," he laughed. Everyone else was smoking as if they had been doing it for years. Today, Selena still didn't dare to do anything. She even refused the next drink that was offered to her because she was a little afraid that the orphanage might find out what they were doing and where they were going. But most of all, she would be ashamed in front of Baba Betty if she met her. She woke up in the morning. Her head ached very badly. Turning to the bed, she saw that Ariana was still asleep. "Ariana," she said in a whisper. Mumbled to herself. Celine grinned. If she had a headache from one sip, she had no idea what was going on with her neighbor. After that, her friend got up somehow. She washed her face, got dressed, and was ready to study. Although it was only words, in fact, she was not ready for anything. But she had to go, so they went together. They went to study. The last lessons, of course, they skipped, and in the evening the whole company was again in a gathering. What they did, the main thing was not to be seen by anyone. Then they would be closely watched. When Grandma Betty found out a week later that Selena was walking with the local gang, she called her in to talk to her. "Selena, what are you doing?" she said to her, and threatened her with her finger. "Oh, please, Baba Betty, do not start lectures. They are already all read to me, teachers, Max, and you will be now," begged her girl, because she did not want to spoil relations with this man. "You think you're a good girl, you have your whole life ahead of you. Now, after school, go to study, get an education, so as not to be like me in old age," the woman told her. "Why are you all bothering me with this study?" Selena didn't understand. "You'll see, then there will be no money. You'll remember me more than once." Baba Betty sat down on the step. "Okay, one more year till graduation. We'll think of something." Selena wanted to leave. "Wait," the woman stopped her. "Well, what else?" The girl was ashamed and ashamed at the same time. "This guy, to you, who goes to you, look at him normal," said Grandma Betty curtly. "What are you talking about? He's already an old man," Selena laughed. "He's not an old man, but he cares about you. You can see that he cares about you. You can see that he'll help you with everything," the woman was sure. Selena smiled at her once more and headed to her room. "Where do you go all the time?" Ariana asked her. "I'm just hanging out with Betty." Selena didn't hide it from her. "Oh, she's old. What are you talking about?" Ariana didn't understand. "She was the only one who supported me here at first," the girl said and averted her eyes. "Well, you can talk to whoever you want." Ariana did not discourage her. She knew that there were few good people here who could support you. The girls had become friends. Now they were sharing everything amongst themselves. Max kept coming over. He never thought of leaving Selena here alone. At some point, when the girls had already finished 9th grade, Selena became closer to Mickey. They were in the same company. One day he was singing a song on the guitar. Selena sang along. He stopped, turned to her. "Why didn't I notice before that you sing so well?" he asked her. "How would I know?" she laughed back, not thinking she had any talents. And in the evening, the guy invited her to go out and hang out with him. She agreed. That night the girl had her first kiss. It seemed like grown-up happiness, although Ariana said that this guy is a bully and with him should not communicate. Selena did not listen to her. She thought that she fell in love. The end of school came. The girl didn't want to study further, and neither did Ariana. In the summer, when they had vacations, she and Mickey would go out in the evening. He had an older friend who came to pick them up in a car, and the young people went with him. "Where are you going so fast?" yelled Selena to him. "Don't sweat it. I've got it under control," the driver was saying. He was just as young, maybe 2-3 years older than the guys themselves. "Mickey, please tell him not to drive like that." Selena turned to her boyfriend. "Come on," he smiled back. He didn't want his friend to think he was listening to girls. They pulled onto the highway. It was good that there weren't so many cars. But as they went up the hill, Selena felt as if a tire had burst or hit something. But there was a strong jolt. After that, the car skidded, and when it started to roll over, the girl screamed a lot. She doesn't remember what happened. She woke up and immediately felt the taste of iron in her mouth, realized it was blood. It was scary. She was lying in an awkward position. The car was all twisted and crumpled. And then she saw the worst. The driver had a pin sticking out his chest. The girl lost consciousness again. Selena, Selena. She heard someone calling her. She opened her eyes and Max's face was in front of her, holding her in his arms. "How are you here?" she asked, and then she passed out again. The next time she woke up was in the hospital room. She was lying on a bed. Her leg must have been broken, so it was somehow pulled, and it was suspended a little higher than the rest of her body. "Well, thank God." She heard that voice again. "Drink." She turned and saw the face of the man who had always been by her side. "Now, wait a minute," Max told her. He jumped up from his chair and ran somewhere. After that, a nurse came into the room. She showed him how to wet his lips initially, and then when allowed, he could be given a drink. Selena lay there, thinking about the fact that this man had not abandoned her in her time of need, nor in her time of happiness. He had always been there for her. "So how are you?" He leaned over her, taking her hand. "All right," practically with only one lip, she said. "I was so scared." He stood up, adjusted her blanket, sat back down on the bed. She was looking at him now in a very different way than she had before. The whole time the girl was in the hospital, Max never left her bedside. He bought her medicine, brought her everything she needed, brought her up, walked her, supported her, cared for her. "What happened to those two?" she asked him. "Are you sure it's important to you?" He didn't want to talk about it. "Well, at least tell me they didn't die," she asked him. "No, all alive," Max smiled back at her. Now, when the girl was almost 16 years old, he was already communicating with her differently than before. "Well, let's go for a walk," he offered her once again. Then he helped her put on her shoes. As they left the room, he held her elbow. Today it was warm outside, so they went under the trees to sit on a bench and get some fresh air. "There you are, and I've been looking for you everywhere." A young girl in a white coat came up to them. "Yes, and why are you looking for us?" asked her, smiling Max. "That's it. Selena is discharged. She can go home," she smiled back. "That's great news," said the young man. "Yes, you can get all the documents at the reception," said the hospital worker and went back. After that, they went up to the room again and gathered all the things Selena had with her. Max helped her to the car, sitting her down. He saw that the girl was very sad for some reason. "What's wrong with you?" He didn't understand. "I don't want to go back to the orphanage," she said. "So go somewhere else." He had no more arguments. "What?" She turned to him. "Go to school. They'll give you a dormitory and everything will be fine." He smiled. "Why didn't I think of it before?" she said back to him. "It took something bad to happen for you to realize that studying was important." He took her hand. Max probably wanted to hold her hand as well as hug her, but he couldn't afford it. Selena did. She didn't expect it to be so easy herself. The girl chose college and the direction of finance and credit. "Well, so now I'm talking to a future financier." Max spoke. He smiled. Anything was possible. Now it seemed to him that the girl was flirting with him. "Don't talk to me like that," he told her. "How am I talking to you?" She was making eyes at him. "Selena, stop it. For years you hated me. You didn't want me to approach you. And now you're making eyes at me?" he said on purpose. "You're just imagining it. Or that's what you want to think," she continued. "That's it. Stop it." He couldn't look at it. So school began. It turned out that it was not as difficult as the girl initially thought. It was even interesting. She was given a dormitory, but she did not want to live there. Almost every day she met Max. "Listen, I have a house left after my parents. Maybe we'll go there," she offered him. "You know, now it would be very uncomfortable," he replied, because he realized that he was working and his colleagues might judge him. "But you don't have to tell everyone," Selena replied. "No, let's wait until you're of age and then we'll think about what and how we'll do." Max was in good standing with his bosses and he wouldn't want to undermine his authority. Selena studied. She, just like before, didn't socialize with anyone. Perhaps it was her nature that she only had one person in her life. Once it was Mom, then it was Grandma Betty, and now it was Max. When she had almost finished her sophomore year, she was 18 years old. In the evening, Max arrived. "What's this?" She looked at the huge bouquet he was getting out of the car with. "It's for you." He walked up to her and now he was already hugging the girl and handed her the bouquet. "Thank you." She looked at him in a way she had never looked at him before. Now I can officially say that before I felt sorry for you as a child who was left alone, then I wanted to take care of you. And now I can officially say that I like you as a girl, and I still want to take care of you." He drew her to him again. "Max," she hugged him. This was no longer the flighty Selena everyone knew at 13 years old. This was a very pretty girl. "Yeah?" He looked at her and couldn't get enough of her. The feeling was mutual. She smiled, and he could see the even row of her teeth. After that, they started dating as a couple. Rarely, but the young man invited the girl to a restaurant. They could not talk enough. At these moments, Selena remembered Grandma Betty, who advised to look at the guy, and she was right. "So, do you agree to move into my house?" She showed me the key she'd recently gotten. "I feel uncomfortable. I'm a man, and I have to earn it all myself," the young man told her. "Listen, it's my house, and why should I make something up if we have all the comforts where we can live and not deny ourselves anything?" she told him. "Okay, only on one condition. I'll pay for everything myself. I'll do everything myself to compensate for the fact that I live at your place," he agreed. Selena was glad of that. She really by this moment realized what role Max played in her life. The girl realized that next to this man she would be like behind a stone wall. He was still working. She just got her diploma, wanted to get a job somewhere, but they decided to hang on to it. One day Max came home earlier than usual. Selena was very surprised. "Why are you home so early?" she asked him. "I want to invite you to a restaurant," he answered her and smiled. She didn't often get out like this, but when she did, it was nice. "Why can't I just invite my girlfriend to a restaurant?" he answered her. "Well, why not? You can. It just happens so rarely that I think there must be some good reason to pull you out of work." She came up and kissed him. They drove to the restaurant. Selena saw that there was a bouquet of flowers on the table, surprised. "Max, you don't earn so much to take me to restaurants and give me bouquets." She stood up and smelled the aroma of flowers. "Sweetheart, that's not all," he smiled. "Well, talk already." She guessed what he wanted to do. The young man came out from behind the table, took a box out of his pocket, got down on one knee. "Will you be my wife?" he asked her. "You know I am." She took the ring, put it on her finger, hugged her lover, and kissed him. "I'm so glad that we have everything worked out this way," Max told her, because, as it turned out, he had been waiting for this moment for many years. "To be honest with you, I'm really glad too," she smiled. "Believe me, darling, you will be the happiest in the world," he whispered in her ear. Selena blushed at that moment. Goosebumps ran along her skin. They spent a wonderful evening, Max talked. The girl listened to him very attentively. She was pleased that opposite to her sat not a peer, but a man older than her. Every day Max went to work. The girl knew that it was dangerous, so every day she encouraged her future husband. "Be careful," she said every time she saw him off. I won't leave you." He kissed her and left. Selena stayed home. She remembered living here with her parents. The young ones had hardly remodeled the place. Everything was the same as it had been before. She cooked, cleaned, and looked at the job ads. That day, there was no sign of trouble. The girl stayed home as usual. She went to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, smiled. With bitterness, she remembered the moment when she was left here alone, that time when Mom and Dad went abroad. There was nothing in the fridge at all then. It brought tears to the girl's eyes. She brushed away the tears and started cooking. The phone rang. Max's number was on the screen. "Hi." She pressed the button to accept the call. "Selena, hello. You don't know me. This is Anthony, your Max friend and partner." A male voice spoke quickly into the receiver. "Hello, Anthony." She stopped, frozen. You see, something happened today that no one was even expecting or thinking about. It was like he was stalling for time. "Max, what's wrong with him?" Tears started to appear in his eyes again. "I'm sorry, what exactly do I have to inform you about it?" And again there was silence in the tube. "Tell me." Selena was already yelling, and she didn't care who this man was. He was involved in a shootout, taken to the local hospital with a serious wound. Anthony gibbered. "Address?" "I'm on my way." She had already grabbed her purse and was putting on her shoes. When everything was dictated to her, she didn't bother listening to what else the man was saying. She just ran out of the house, dialing a cab number on the way. When she was in the car, it seemed to the girl that they were going very slowly. "Please, faster," She imagined that her lover was dying now, and she would not have time to come to him. She had seen this in all the movies. "We're going very fast," without turning around, the driver told her. But Selena already understood little. She was hurrying to the one who since the moment of their acquaintance had never left, and all the time only supported. "Hello, Max." She ran into the hospital building and immediately shouted. "Girl, calm down, you can't see him now. He's in surgery." One of the women grabbed her arm. "No, I need to see him." Selena was hysterical. "Come with me." The woman in the white coat pulled her along. "I'm not going anywhere with you. Let me go. I need to see him. He's waiting for me," she cried. At one point, the woman just turned to the nurse, who only nodded her head slightly. And while Selena was being led to the couch, she ran off somewhere, and when she came back, she gave the girl a small injection. It was a sedative. Selena opened her eyes, dizzy. She couldn't realize where she was. "Hi, you've come to your senses?" She heard a man's voice, but she couldn't realize who it was. Now, he saw that she frowned and groaned, went to get a glass of water. "Who are you?" Drank and asked the girl. "I called you. My name is Anthony." Today, this name for Selena was not very pleasant. "I see. What's wrong with me?" She wanted to know. She didn't remember being sedated. "You were very nervous. You were hysterical, so the doctors took extreme measures," he explained to her. At that moment, Selena remembered what had happened, why she was here. Pupils dilated. She jumped up from the bed. "Where is Max? What's wrong with him? Why wasn't I allowed to see him? Is he alive?" At that moment, she felt dizzy and started to faint. Anthony picked her up, carried her back to the bed. "Selena, he's fine. He's in intensive care now, but they promised to move him to another room by morning." He sat down with her so that nothing else would happen. "Tell me, is he badly hurt?" cried Selena again. "There is no need to cry. The operation was successful. The bullet went through, but it hit a lung," the man told her. "Okay. Can I get some sleep?" She asked him to leave. Anthony left the room where Selena was, but from the corridor he was not going to go anywhere, because to some extent he considered himself guilty of the situation. The girl did not begin to think about anything, because she realized that with this she would not change anything. It was better to sleep now, and tomorrow she would help her beloved. "Can I go to him?" She went cautiously out of the room, saw that Anthony was dozing in the corridor chair. "Just be quiet." The nurse put her finger to her lips. "Okay," Selena repeated her gesture. She opened the door and tiptoed over to the bed where Max lay. "Hello, darling." She took his hand. Oddly enough, there was no excitement or hysteria at all today. She felt him squeeze her hand. "Don't move," gently. She was afraid he would hurt himself. After that, she arranged with the nurse that she would follow the young man herself. Everyone was surprised at the girl's selflessness, but had nothing against it. Selena, just like when she was feeling ill and Max was taking care of her, answered him in the same way. At first, they just left the room for a few minutes down the corridor. Then they went down to the first floor, and then they started to go outside. "Thank you, my love," the young man said to her. "I'm ready to do everything for you." She cried with joy that now her man was every day better and better. "You and I have been through so much, we can't not be together now," said Max. He even tried to laugh. "Don't," she stopped him. As the young man was being prepared for discharge, Selena was glad for this moment as well. Now both he and she were sure of each other. It was possible not to delay the wedding. So they decided, as soon as Max is completely recovered, they will immediately apply. "My little one, how did you manage?" he told her, and when he hugged her, he lifted her a little from the floor. Indeed, Selena was small in stature, thin, and at her age, looked like a teenager. "Don't call me that," she took offense. "Come on," he flicked her on the nose, and they'd laugh about it together. When the rehab time passed and Max had to go to work again, after his sick leave, before that they went to the registry office. "Now I'm really happy." They walked out of the building. "You're not the only one." She put her arm around his waist. Everything, it seemed, everything bad that had happened before to the young couple had receded into the background. Selena was preparing as best she could for the wedding. There was no one to ask for help. When once again Max went to work, the girl was again engaged in household chores. When she once again looked in the refrigerator, saw a jar of jam. Baba Badi, it hit her. She grabbed the phone and dialed the number of an old acquaintance. Now she could only hope that she had not changed the number. At first, there was a long ringing tone. Emmo, she heard Selena's voice so familiar. Baba Betty, hi, it's Celine, she yelled. Oh, girl, quiet. Don't shout, you'll deafen me, answered her grandmother in her repertoire. My dear grandmother, I'm getting married. I want you to help me, the girl said very loudly on emotions. Dictate where to come, without unnecessary questions, told her the woman. When Selena had told her everything, there was nothing more to talk about. They both pressed to disconnect. Now the girl went to the kitchen. She began to prepare for the arrival of her dear guest. Baba Betty arrived 2.5 hours later. When Selena heard a knock on the door, she ran to open it. What a mess, grumbled Grandma Betty. Hello, my dear, greeted the girl. Wow. The woman took her by the hands and began to examine her from all sides. Come in, Selena herself does not know why she was so excited. They went to the kitchen. There they began to drink tea, and Selena told everything. She listened, after all, shook her head, meaning Max. Yes, thank you, hugged her grandmother, who was now like a relative to the girl. Okay, what's going on, she asked. We applied, but I don't have anything and I don't know anything about it. Selena sat down on the chair. Don't panic, we'll get it all done. The guest was confident. Good, soon Max will arrive. We need to prepare dinner, fussed the girl in the kitchen. All sit down, stop fussing, the woman asked her. After that they started cooking together, and the grandmother reasoned. So how many people will be on the holiday? Where it will be held? She began to ask questions. We didn't want to call anyone at all, only you and a couple of Max's friends. Selena was silent. Now she thought about her future husband's parents. He didn't say anything about them. What? Stared Baba Betty at her confused look. Okay, I'll find out later, she waved her hand. When everything was ready, they just waited for the young man to return from work. By now they had decided that they needed to find or buy a simple light-colored dress. It would be enough for a simple registration. Exactly, I would not even think about it. I have in my head only a wedding dress. Hugged for the umpteenth time today, the girl hugged her grandmother Hannah. That's it, that's all, she said. Will you stay at least until the wedding? Selena put her hands together, begging. Okay, so be it. Anyway, there is nowhere to go. No one is waiting at home, said the woman sorrowfully. Max, when he returned, was also happy to see Baba Badi. They had dinner together. They told him everything. He nodded approvingly. Max, what about your parents? Selena looked at him. I think they won't go. They live far away. But I already called them. They are waiting for us to visit. He told her about it. The wedding was going to be in 2 weeks, and already it was exciting. Grandma told different stories every day. Selena listened to her with interest. They were best friends again, who trusted each other. So, are you ready? The woman asked her when the happy day came. Of course, stood like Thumbelina Selena in the large hallway. Love, I'm waiting for you. They heard Max's voice from the street. Let's go, Grandma answered for her. After that, they went to the registry office. There they received all the documents. Now they were husband and wife. In the restaurant, as Selena said, there were really only a few people. The bride and groom were very happy. Selena, I went home, woke up in the morning by her grandmother. Why? Asked the one in a sleepy voice. You are young, live, and I will only get in your way, she said. Come to visit. I left the address there. She pointed to the table. Okay, bye, I love you, they hugged. And again, the young couple began to have an ordinary life, which was and before that. Max worked. Selena waited for him at home. They rarely went out, but when they did, Max tried to surprise his beloved. So it had been almost 2 years. Beloved, maybe I should get a job too. She asked him one evening. I think you can stay at home. He didn't want to bother her. Well, she was not offended, but on the other hand, already tired of sitting alone at home. Don't be offended. We'll think of something, he told her. And Selena didn't want to tell him anything. She always agreed with what her beloved husband said. So tonight she waited for him again for dinner. Max came. He went, changed his clothes, washed his hands, went to the kitchen, sat down at the table. What's wrong? She asked him. Why would you say that? He didn't understand. You came and did not even kiss me. It was for a girl was not crucial, but such a thing just never happened. I'm sorry, at work loaded, he said also sadly, then stood up, kissed her on the cheek, and sat back down at the table. She never got involved in her husband's business because, first of all, it was not interesting to her, and secondly, she didn't want to bore him. Selena, I'm going to tell you something. You have the right to refuse, but if you agree, I'll be the happiest man on earth, he told her. Okay, I'm ready to listen. In my head immediately began to fly different thoughts. What could Max say that she could refuse? Today I was summoned by my superiors. He was silent for a few seconds, but even they were enough for Selena to realize that Max was again given some task. So, go on, she sat down on the stool and was ready to listen to him until the end. I'm being sent on a business trip to one of the provincial cities, he said. And what's the big deal? She even felt funny because he was so serious about it. The business trip will last not one day and not even 1 month, Max explained. Why, they didn't tell you the terms. Selena didn't understand. There is such a case that perhaps everything will drag on a little longer, did not specify anything, husband. Okay, I agree, did not even begin to think wife. I was so afraid you would refuse, he jabbed at her. You what? I'll do anything for you and for your sake. I do not work anywhere, I sit alone at home. What do I care where to sit, in a provincial city or here, she smiled at him. Then everything, my love. Know that I am also for your sake ready for everything. Now they sat down to dinner. No one had any questions. The next day, the young family started packing for their trip. Selena was packing the things they should need, and Max went to work again to take all the necessary documents. Did you tell the bosses that you were going with the family? She asked, afraid of what might happen if someone didn't approve. Of course, we should already have an apartment there, Max answered. That was great. Selena was even kind of excited about this trip because she was tired of these walls and she wanted some variety. They first flew by plane. After landing a few more hours by train, and here they were, the girl saw that it was really a small town. She herself did not understand why there was such joy inside her. When they came to the apartment they had rented for them, it was a little sad. There was hardly any space. Well, it's all right. It's not a big deal, the girl said out loud. It still seems so to you. After the big house, Max laughed at her. Perhaps she agreed with him, and she didn't want to argue about anything. Selena spent the first day organizing everything in the apartment, and the next day, while her husband was at work, she decided to go out and see the city. Hello, and you are the new tenants? She came out of the entrance and immediately heard the question. Yes, the girl said happily to the new neighbors. She was happy to learn something new. She walked along the small, but clean and cozy streets. It was summer. Everything was blooming. It was so good. When she came to a small park, she saw a very cool construction, a big circle that stood on poles, and on the beams hung big swings on chains. This pleased the girl very much. She took a seat. Hello, she heard from the side. Hello, wondered Selena. What friendly people are here? Can you tell me what time it is? The girl asked her. Sure, she looked at her watch and told the stranger what time it was. Thank you, she smiled and went on with her business. Say, is everyone here so talkative? Selena asked the girl. Yes, why? She turned to her again. No, it's just that we just arrived yesterday. My husband was sent on business, Selena admitted. I'm Veronica. A new acquaintance sat down next to her. Selena. They introduced themselves to each other. Very nice to meet you. They both smiled. After that they talked. For some reason this girl reminded Selena of Ariana, a friend from the orphanage, but of course she didn't say it out loud. A few hours passed and the girls were already like best friends. They were heading towards Selena's house. What do you do? Veronica was asked by the visitor. I work, she said casually. And where? Selena thought that she might get lucky. In a financial institution, she answered. And I was just studying for it, said Selena, as if in passing. So come, we always need staff. Veronica smiled openly at her. Really? The girl couldn't believe her ears. In her city, no matter how much she searched, there were no vacancies or you need work experience. And why not? Even if not accepted, in the forehead no one will give, laughed new girlfriend. Okay, I'll come tomorrow, Selena promised her. Well, we are waiting. They said goodbye. Max wasn't there for a long time today. Understandably, it was the first day. He was probably being brought up to speed. When he arrived, Selena was almost asleep, but she got up to meet him because she wanted to share the news. "What are you doing up?" he asked, surprised. "I was waiting for you," she stretched. "Let's go." He called her into the kitchen, where he put the kettle on the stove. "Are you going to eat?" his wife asked. "No, thanks, I'm tired. I'm falling off my feet." He shook his head and poured himself some tea. "I have news too." She came up behind him. "What kind of news is that on the first day?" He was happy. He thought of pregnancy. "No, it's not at all what you want so much." She kissed her husband. "What then?" He looked. "I'm going to apply for a job tomorrow. And don't say anything." She started kissing him again. "Okay, try it. Maybe you'll like it." He smiled tiredly. "That's it. Let's go to bed," she told him. He picked her up like a flake and carried her to the bedroom. There they whispered and kissed for a long time, and then they did not notice how they fell asleep. Early in the morning, Max went to work again, and Selena got up. She had 2 hours before she had to go to work. At first, she wanted to put on eye makeup. Then she decided against it. She put on a simple dress and went. When she arrived at the organization, she realized that even though this town was small, there were exactly the same organizations here as they had in their town. The girl went up to the second floor, wanted to get to the director, but he was not there. "What did you want?" A woman who sat in the secretary's seat asked her. "I would like to know about the job." Selena thought to say about Veronica, but then decided that it was not worth it. "Evan Vasilievich isn't here yet, but you can go to the HR department. They'll tell you everything." The woman pointed to the door. "Thank you very much." Selena left the reception. The personnel department really told her everything, showed her what to do, what documents she needed when applying for a job. "So you're hiring me?" The girl didn't understand. "Of course, but where can we go? Your education is suitable. We have to take both with experience and without experience," answered the woman who sat at the table. "Thank you." Selena opened her bag, took out all the documents that were necessary. "Oh, you have everything with you." After the girl wrote the application, she was shown the office where she would sit. When she entered it, she immediately saw Veronica. "Well, how did it go?" quietly asked a new acquaintance. "Great." Selena showed her the classroom. She sat down at the computer, smiled at the one who had brought her here. "Well, everyone, I can see you know some people here, so you should have everything explained to you." She turned around and walked towards the door. "Don't be afraid, it's easy here. Me and the girls will help you if you need it," Veronica told her. "And I'm not afraid. I've never been afraid of difficulties," Selena admitted to her. At first, they began to show the programs in which they worked, to tell what and how. But after a couple of hours, the girls still could not stand it, called Selena to drink tea. It was interesting how the newcomer lives in their city. "I have a husband. We came here on his business trip. I don't know how long we will stay here. That's why I came to get a job." She didn't want to hide anything from her new colleagues. It was understandable. The girls welcomed her warmly into their small team. But it was only their office. When the director arrived and called them at the end of the working day for a meeting, the whole team gathered in a small hall. Today, for the first time, Selena felt how tired she was, even though she hadn't done any physical work. No running, no jumping, but there was some kind of moral dissatisfaction. She went home, drank some tea, had a little something to eat, took a shower, and went to her bedroom. Selena didn't hear Max come in. In fact, what happened in the apartment after she went to bed? In the morning, she woke up, went to the kitchen, made breakfast for her and her husband. "So, how was work?" He got there. "You know, great. But now I realize when you told me you were tired," she laughed, went to him. He sat her on his lap. They didn't talk about work again at all. Selena was back in her office. It went on like that for a week, a second. When she had worked for a month, she had already gotten used to the kind of staff they had. If the girls in the office oohed and ahed when they saw what she was wearing, the older generation began to condemn her for short skirts, transparent blouses, some wrong dresses, and everything else. "Yeah, don't pay attention. They're just jealous of you," Veronica told her friend. "I don't mind," she said, but Veronica could see that she had something wrong with her. When they went home, her co-worker and friend asked her to tell her story. Let's go somewhere to sit, Selena asked her. They went to a small cafe that was not far from Selena's house. There, after the order was brought, the girl began to share that she didn't like the way the principal looked at her. Evan? Veronica laughed. Yep, that's the one. Selena agreed with her. Come on, that squishy guy, don't even think about it, the girl told her, and as if laughing at him. That's good for you to say, Selena glared at her. Veronica was large in her own right, a little overweight, and as she stood next to the principal, it seemed as if he was a little intimidated by her. I see your point, laughed her girlfriend again. They were now sitting and relaxing after a hard day's work. Afterward, when the time was late, they decided they had had enough and packed up to go home. Selena decided that she would not say anything to her husband, although her friends advised her to do so. She decided that, as her friend said, she would deal with this squirt on her own. Max came home. He was very tired, then nervous, then something else. Selena wasn't not so tired, but for some reason her husband didn't pay as much attention to her as he used to. Did something happen to you? She asked him one day. Yes, I'm not getting any work done, he answered. Selena didn't bother him to bother him. She went to the bathroom. Today, for some reason, she just wanted to lie in hot water, bask in the air foam. Is everything okay at work? Max lay down next to her when it was already night. I can't say it's okay, but it'll do, she replied. Every day when she went to her job, she saw that the boss was really fond of her, and she knew that he had a wife and children. And she didn't understand how she could have all that and look at others. That's what she told Veronica about on her next visit. Listen, let's check if it's true or not, her friend told her. Don't you get it? Selena looked at her. The holiday is coming up. Evan is going to gather the team, and you come in a short skirt and a dress. If he'll resist, it's all just your imagination, but if not, her friend was silent. I can do that. Selena's mind immediately recalled memories of the orphanage, where she flaunted in mini skirts tops with an acrid hair color. Veronica was not deceived. Indeed, a few days later it was announced that on Friday there would be a corporate party, so that they would not plan anything in the afternoon. On the morning of that day, Selena showed up in her normal clothes. The whole time, until she left for lunch, Evan had been walking around, giving her some compliments and even more innuendos. Selena didn't have the nerve until Veronica cut him off. Evan, have a conscience, she told him. That's it, I'll be quiet. He went to his office. But when Selena came in from lunch, she made a splash in her organization. A skirt that hid what was underneath, a blouse that also hid almost nothing, high heels, shadows, lipstick. From the outside, it looked like a teenager had come in here, but it wasn't like that at all. The principal kept teasing and complimenting her, but didn't allow anything more than that. When the girls reconvened in her office after the weekend, Veronica showed Selena to the door that they needed to talk. Well, you see, I told you that you're just imagining things, her friend said. Yeah, I realized that already. It's just a corporate joke, Selena laughed. They continued working. Everything was fine. Max had changed something at work, because lately he came home, smiled, even once invited his wife to a cafe. God, it's been a long time since I've been anywhere with you, she told him. I know that, and I realized that I stopped giving you as much time as I used to, but so far, no way. He leaned across the table and kissed his wife. I love you. She raised her glass. And you, he couldn't sit here any longer. They finished their dinner quickly. Then they sat for a while longer and went home because she couldn't wait to cuddle with him. I had forgotten how gentle you are, Max whispered in her ear. Good night, my love. She snuggled up to him, and so they fell asleep. On another Friday, the girl came to work. She realized that the semi-annual report was coming up, and it had to be done before the end of the day. Why didn't you start it a few days ago? Veronica asked her. Yes, I thought I'll finish it later. Time flew by quickly. But nothing, don't worry, I'll stay tonight. I'll finish everything, Selena said. She was going through the documents, putting some numbers in there, double-checking, correcting. At 5 in the evening, when all the girls had gone home, she stayed behind. The hallway was dark, the office quiet. Selena quietly finished her report, and already, when it was late, left the office. The girl was very tired. She thought she would never procrastinate like this again. After all, there was all the data, could really start doing all this earlier. When she walked down the corridor, saw that the light was on in the waiting room, thought that they just forgot to turn it off, went there to do it. But as soon as I got near the reception area, I saw Evan come out of the office. "Selena, what are you doing here?" he asked her. "Nothing. I just got held up," she answered, turned around and wanted to leave. "Wait," he grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" She looked over her shoulder at him, not expecting such a turn of events. "Come with me." He yanked her forcefully into his office. "Evan, what are you doing?" She didn't understand. "And who was walking in front of me in a short skirt, who was flaunting everything? I saw that you wanted it," he told her. The next moment, he picked her up in his arms and put her on the table. "Please," said Evan, "don't touch me," she screamed. "What, you're going to resist? You came dressed like this, you wanted this," and now he was undressing, his cheeks flushed. He didn't seem to know what he was doing. The next moment, he lifted her into his arms. "Please, Evan, don't touch me," she screamed. "What, are you going to resist yet?" His cheeks flushed. He didn't seem to realize what he was doing. After a couple minutes, it was over. She just couldn't get up from the table. The headmaster had collapsed in his chair. Slowly, Selena got off the table. Her hair was all over her shoulders. She had to get something to hold it back. When, after a couple of minutes, she heard a long sigh, she realized it was over. She just couldn't get up from the table. She was in so much pain it felt like she was being stabbed. The headmaster collapsed in his chair. He spread his legs, sitting up and breathing deeply. Slowly, Selena climbed off the desk. Her hair was spilling over her shoulders. She needed something to hold it back. Before that, she had a barrette in the form of a simple metal one her husband had given her. It wasn't plain, it was gold-plated. She didn't want to leave it here. But after looking around a bit, Selena didn't find it. Then she saw the jewelry in the boss's hand. She didn't do anything about it. The girl opened the door, quickly ran out, heard in the back as the director shouted to her that if she told anyone about what happened here, she would not be well. She ran home, praying for one thing, that Max wouldn't be home. If he saw her like that, he'd never forgive her, and she didn't want to say anything to him about it. Selena ran into the apartment. There was really no one there. This pleased the girl greatly. She quickly threw off all the clothes that were torn, those she tied in garbage bags and threw away. What remained intact, pushed into the washing machine. She got in the shower. At first, she rubbed herself for a long time, and then she just poured water into the bathtub and sat there soaking. When a long time had passed, she realized that she had to go to bed. When she got there and lay in bed, she felt so bad. Only she closed her eyes, and immediately she saw that horrible, embittered face of the principal, who just had no pity, mocking her. It was necessary to leave this city. When a long time had passed, she realized that she had to go to bed. When she got there and lay in bed, she felt so bad. Only she closed her eyes and immediately saw that horrible, embittered face of the director, who simply had no pity, mocked her. I should have left this town. She heard the door slam, turned away and pretended to be asleep. She didn't want to talk to anyone today. "Good morning, my love." She heard her husband say good morning. "Good morning." She woke up and went straight to the shower. It seemed to her that the odor she had left from yesterday still lingered on her body. "What are you doing?" Max didn't understand. "Nothing. Go to the kitchen. I'll be right there." She definitely didn't want to say anything to him, although she realized what he could do with this pervert. "Max, can't we just get out of this town soon?" Selena asked randomly. I think there's not much left, but we can't leave right now," he told her. "Okay," she answered him. "What happened?" He wanted to know. "No, nothing happened. I just had a fight with the girls, and I don't like it here anymore. So I want to go back home, to the place where you and I lived so happily," she answered him. "Wait, darling, there is still a little bit left, and I promise you that I will get you out of here." He kissed her, grabbed the last sandwich, and ran to work. Selena didn't need to go anywhere today. She had finished everything at work yesterday, and there was no desire to go back to the place where she had been bullied yesterday. How to face her co-workers, and if this rapist is not only with her, so did it, and the others just keep silent. She had all kinds of thoughts in her head and wanted to cry. She stayed in bed all weekend. Veronica called her, but she didn't answer. On Monday, when she went to work, the girl did not know how to behave. "What's going on with you?" Veronica asked her. "I don't know, I'm bored with everything. I don't like everything," Selena lied to her. "And what do you want to do?" Looked at her frightened friend. "Recently asked Max that we leave here." Selena was now honestly confessing. "No, I did not understand what could happen. Worked, was so happy. And now what?" Did not understand her colleague. "Oh, Veronica, you can't understand." She waved her away. When the end of the working day approached, Selena got up and went home 10 or 15 minutes earlier than everyone else. "Where are you going?" "Wait." Veronica ran after her. "I'm in a hurry to get home. I have to make dinner tonight," she said, and quickened her pace. "Selena, what's going on?" "Stop, friend," because she realized that she could not catch up with her colleague. And she wanted to be in her apartment, her world, because she knew that no one would touch her there. "Why did I leave my protector's wing?" She sat in front of the mirror and talked to herself, and then cried again, and then talked again. But by evening, when Max was to come from work, Selena put herself in order, cooked dinner, and waited for her beloved. He came today unusually early. In his hands was a huge folder with some papers. The wife was surprised, because she had never seen such a thing. "Is dinner ready?" He looked at Selena with tired eyes. Of course, she saw that her husband was exhausted by something, realized that this city was not suitable for them, and that it was urgent to finish all business and leave. They went to the kitchen. The girl took out plates, began to set the table. Max watched her. "Tell me something. I do not want to sit in silence," asked her husband. At that moment, it seemed to Selena that he had found out everything, and now he wanted to hear everything from her. "About what?" She was confused. "I don't know. What's going on at work with you?" He shrugged. "Nothing like that in general. So much demand, and no return. The salary is pennies. Probably I'll quit." The wife turned away to avoid looking at her husband. "That's good, and I told you that there is nothing to do on this job, only to get tired." He looked at the plate, which was already in front of him, breathed the flavor of the dish, rolled his eyes. "Is it good?" smiled Selena. "You ask." He picked up his fork and began to eat. After dinner, the husband did not go, as usual, to think or work. He took his wife by the hand, and they went together to the bedroom. "And wine for what?" Selena watched that Max took from the table the remains that were in the bottle. "I want to turn on a movie and watch it with you by my side." He pulled her against him. "You must have something going on," she guessed. "That's it. Don't think about it. Let's go." He turned on the TV, filled the glasses, they sat on top of the plate on the bed, and enjoyed a good movie, wine, and each other. "Work tomorrow." Selena took a sip. "You said you were quitting." He looked at her. "Yeah, did you?" She'd hoped he was about to say he was quitting too. "And I've decided I need to work from home for a while," the man answered her. "That's great." She leaned over and touched his lips a little. "Just promise me you won't get in my way." He threatened her with his finger. "Okay," she nodded, agreeing. After that, the young men went to bed. They talked about something else, laughed, and fell asleep without noticing it. Selena liked evenings like this. She loved talking to Max. Tonight's sleep was going to be deep and sweet, because soon this nightmare in her life was going to be over. She imagined coming to work tomorrow, walking into HR, telling them she wanted to write a letter of resignation. Yes, she might have to go to the director, but only so that he would sign this unfortunate application for her. With these thoughts, the girl fell asleep. In the morning, she woke up happy. Max was still asleep. She didn't want to disturb him, as she knew he didn't need to go anywhere today. She kissed him quietly and went out into the hallway. Selena didn't put on any makeup today, put on her usual skirt and blouse, went outside and walked. "Are you sick?" Veronica asked her when she got to work. "No, why would you say that?" Selena was surprised she was asking. "You're pale and you don't look so good," her friend looked at her. "I just didn't feel like wearing makeup this morning." Selena didn't hide it. She was picking up some things on her desk. "What are you doing?" Veronica asked her. "You know, Max said he didn't have much left to do, so I decided I didn't want to work here anymore," she answered. "Did we do something to offend you?" The colleague immediately took it personally. "No, you are very nice. Thank you for the warm welcome. It was very good to work with you," Selena admitted. "And what then?" Did not understand the friend. "I explained to you. I just don't want to work anymore. I realized that I'd rather stay at home. My husband provides for me and everything. He does everything I want. I've been sitting at home for so long, I'm bored. So I decided to do an experiment, Selena said. She hadn't sat down once since she came to work. Maybe you should think about it, the girl at the next table said. No, tonight I have already thought about everything and decided everything. Now I will go to the personnel department and write an application, said the girl. Do you know that there will be 2 weeks of work? Asked another question Veronica. And what? Without it is impossible. Selena was surprised. Well, I don't know, but usually everyone has to work. She shrugged her shoulders and turned away from the monitor. She felt bad that she brought this girl here and she'd worked so little and now she wanted to quit. Well, if they tell me to work, then I'll work for 2 weeks. It's not time, of course. Selena was upset with herself. She thought the worst, that in 2 weeks anything could happen. She walked into the office she was familiar with. Jessica was sitting in her usual seat. Oh, Selena, hello, what are you doing here? She spoke in a deliberately polite manner, although the girl knew how she felt about her and what she said about her. I want to write a letter of resignation, she admitted honestly. And what happened? The same song started again as in her office. Nothing happened, for personal reasons, did not want to tell anything in this office, Selena. All right, write it down, she slid her a sheet of paper. Selena began to write under dictation as she asked to be dismissed at her own request. Do you know that Evan is away on a business trip, and no one will be able to sign this application for you in the next 3 days? That's okay. The girl looked up at her and smiled. Well, since you don't see it as a big deal, then finish it. Leave it here, I'll take it all away, and you go to your workplace and continue working, Jessica said sternly. Selena did just that. She left everything on the woman's desk and went back to her office. Well, what did they tell you there? Veronica turned around. She had calmed down a bit and was now able to talk to Selena again. They didn't say anything. Why are you reacting this way? I'm not offended. We're still talking. Selena approached her. No, I'm just offended that— What? Who manages? She sat down on his lap and started looking at the papers. It was the first time she hadn't had that kind of nerve before. I didn't want to tell you, so as not to scare you. He touched her shoulder with his lips. She turned and kissed him on the nose. Do you know why I was summoned here? He looked into her eyes. Selena turned to him, and now they were sitting like this. Of course not. How would I know such things? You know I never get involved in your business. She looked at him as if he was accusing her of something. I'm not telling you anything. I just don't know how to start a conversation. He exhaled heavily again. Well, talk. She was already intrigued and couldn't wait. A few years ago, a maniac showed up in this town. No, you just don't think anything bad right away. He covered her body with kisses the whole time he was talking, as if he was calming her down. God, who was he hitting on? My wife wanted to know all the details. Wait, everything in order? He put his palm forward. Okay, she nodded and put her finger to her lips that she was ready to listen and be silent. So, before this was a quiet, peaceful town, but at some point strange things started happening. Many mothers began to notice that their teenage daughters began to behave in a different way, he said, and tried not to look at his wife. How can you with children? But at least they are alive. Selena made big eyes and looked at her husband now. That's what I'm saying. That strange things began to happen, continued Max. What kind of things? The girl was getting excited. Comes a girl from school, and she has no mood. Parents ask what's wrong. She is silent. Her to a psychologist. There is also no word. And then it turns out from the best friends that she called a grown-up uncle in the car, right? Well, and he raised his eyes at her. What a freak, Selena said angrily. The locals, no matter how much they try, can't figure out what kind of uncle is walking around the city. The main thing stops for a while and then starts again. Max could not stop. Well, what did you find out about him? Selena did not believe that there was nothing. A lot of things. He pulled out a sheet of paper that was written all over. Read it yourself. The handwriting is incomprehensible. She waited and thought how in such a small town cannot find such an uncle. So the girls who confessed, and they were questioned later, said that he was small in stature, stubby build. The husband began to read the writing. So, what's next? Selena wondered. Well, if he's like that, he chose victims who can't fight back, he concluded. Ah, nodded Selena and immediately remembered her director, who also did not choose Veronica to take her to his office, but dragged her there. But she immediately dismissed these thoughts because he had a wife, children, and a position. But there is something else strange. Max stopped talking. He was going through the sheets further. What? The girl was already waiting with bated breath. Each of the bastard takes something to remember. Mostly it is jewelry on the hair, said the husband. At that moment, Selena clamped her hand over her mouth. She couldn't believe such coincidences. Where did you look for it? She asked her husband. Are you feeling sick? He saw that Selena turned pale. She sat and looked at him silently. Wait, answer my question, she asked. Yes, I can see I was wrong to start telling you all this. He shook his head. No. Go on, sad and thought. How now to tell everything to my husband? Because if it was immediately, then nothing. He would even be a hero. But now it hid. So it's my own fault. And what to continue? A total dead end. Who we have not checked. That only did not do. There is no it. Vaporized. That's all. Divorce Max. I need to think. Got up wife. And went into the next room. You say, just like me, when I need to do it after moralizing or something, grinned the husband. But Celine didn't care about laughing right now. Everything matched in her head, stubby so she wouldn't get a rebuff. Choosing weak and young girls, and no matter how old she was, she didn't look like them. And last of all, a hairpin, for she has an unusual one too. What to do? How to tell such a thing to her most favorite person? But on the other hand, she would keep silent, save only her family. But how many girls would be in danger? Max, she firmly called her husband. What, my love? Just a few more minutes. He couldn't get away from something. It's urgent. She got up, looked out of the room. What's wrong? He looked at his wife and couldn't understand what was going on with her, why she was so taken by this story. I have something to tell you. She spoke very fast. It seemed that she was going to choke on her words. Honey, calm down. What are you so excited about? He took her hands and wanted to pull her to him, but she pulled away from him. At this point, Selena just sobbed into her voice. It seemed like the girl had lost her mind. God, wait, he stood up, pulling out the medicine cabinet to give his wife something to calm her down. I can't. She sat on the floor. Her hair fell over her face. She was sobbing. Here, take it, drink, until everything in order. Now Max remembered the last days, when his wife told him that she wanted to leave the city, and suddenly, Selena greedily gulped water from the glass. She raised her eyes to her husband, and tears rolled from them again. I'm sorry, she couldn't get a word out. Okay, I forgive you, but tell me, he sat on the chair and clenched his fists. When I got the job, she started and burst into tears again. Yes, I remember that day. And then what? You and Veronica went out, he suggested. No, she shook her head. Okay, I'm going to need a sedative now. He stood up again. He started hitting on me and we decided to check. Selena sobbed. Who is he? Who to check? Calmed down and now patiently waited for Max for her next phrase. Evan, continued the girl. I do not understand, your director. Jumped up again from the chair Max. Yes, at this moment the wife as sharply calmed down. She got up from the floor, went to the bathroom, washed her face. So are you ready to tell me everything? Once again he asked. Yes, she nodded to him calmly already, not interrupting. He didn't even look at her. You see how I look. First he complimented me and then she told him how she was delayed and what happened next. It's good that you told me that, but what does that have to do with the local maniac? He didn't understand. Remember the hairpin you gave me the first year we met? She stared and waited for confirmation. The gilded wand? He remembered. Yes, she nodded. Well, so what? His wife's words still didn't make sense to him. When it was over, it was in his hands. He had purposely pulled it out of my hair. She didn't look at her husband. Come to me. He pulled her to him. Like a little girl, he placed her on his lap. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, she sobbed again, but quietly. Okay, go to bed. The sedative will kick in now. He picked her up and carried her to the bedroom. What about you? She didn't understand what she was doing. I'll sit and think. He put her on the bed, covered her with a blanket, and returned to the kitchen. In the morning, when Selena opened her eyes, she remembered what had happened last night. Her cheeks flushed. Max was sleeping next to her. She decided to wake him up because it was unbearable to live in the unknown. Beloved, she almost cried again. Oh, you're awake? It seemed like he was up all night. Yes, she opened her mouth to say something else, but Max didn't let her. Listen to me carefully. He brought her coffee from the kitchen. Thank you. She looked up at him appreciatively. What you told me yesterday, I can't tell anyone else, but if all suspicions are justified, then he didn't know what to tell her next. Max, tell me, I don't care anymore. It was the worst secret before you, his wife asked him. Okay, I take guys I trust. We'll always be there for each other. You go to work. He's coming back from a business trip today. So you go to his office, you tell him you want to quit. When he asks why, you answer that you can no longer live like that. Look at him. You need to make him bite. Today, quickly and confusingly said Max. Okay, she followed his train of thought so far confused. If everything goes so that he agrees, you say, at least where, but not here, and there we ourselves. He finished his incomprehensible story. So we catch him on the bait, that is, on me. She understood only one thing. That's right, don't you agree? He looked at her expectantly. What about our relationship? Selena didn't know what would happen next. It's okay, I love you. It's not your fault you met this. He kissed. Everything was planned out, properly spoken, who, where, and when. Selena had her makeup on, dressed, ready to go to work. You look great, Max told her. Thank you. She sent him an air kiss and walked out of the apartment. Oh, girlfriend, I don't recognize you. Veronica looked at her when she got to work. I hope today is my last day of work here, Selena told her. That's a shame, frowned her friend. It's okay. All day today, Selena did all the tasks. She was waiting for the end of the working day to come to Evan Vasilievich. Finally, that moment came. Aren't you coming? Veronica turned at the door when she was almost out. No, the boss said to come by after 5, Selena lied. Okay, and bye. Veronica returned, hugged her friend. I'll call you, she gestured to her. When the corridors quieted down, Selena was very afraid, but she knew that Max was close by. She left the office and headed to the reception area. Hello, Ivan, she peeked into his office, and even though the man made her sick inside, she smiled. Wow, and I thought you'd never set foot in here again. He was very surprised. Selena stepped boldly across the threshold, sat down across from the man and placed a piece of paper in front of him. What is this? He considered what was written. I want to quit, she said and moved a little closer to him. Why is that? The man in charge frowned. You wouldn't know, she lowered her eyes. 2 weeks he wanted to sign. You know, Vanya, I liked it so much then I was scared at first. But then I realized that it was stupid. If I hadn't resisted, it would have been different, she began to say languidly. Come to me. He held out his arms to her. No, she shook her head. What do you mean? The boss was confused. You see, this is not exactly the place to do it. She got up from the chair and went to the exit. Inside, everything was shaking with fear. Got it? No fool. Let's go. He quickly shut down the computer and they walked out of the office. Selena could feel him shaking as he put his arm around her waist. She smiled and kept saying something to keep him from doing anything. The couple got into the supervisor's car. They drove off in an unknown direction. Selena already didn't know anything here, and now she didn't even realize where he was taking her. Where are we? She looked around. I have a garage here, but don't worry, everything is civilized, he said, and he was already breathing so hard that it seemed that everything would end before it began. When they got out of the car, Selena saw the man walking toward the doors, which were completely out of sight. Evan opened them and they stepped inside. Come in. He stood and held the doors, the girl realized, to close them from the inside. So what, and how will Max get in here? Flashed through her mind, but it was too late to think about that now. Thank you. Wow, the girl immediately saw that this was not a garage at all. Everything was made like a hotel room. She immediately noticed the shelves that were on the wall. There were rows and rows of hairpins that he took from his victims. You like it? Evan came up behind her. Very much. But why do you need all this? She pointed at the hair jewelry. Come on, I'll explain it to you later. He took her by the waist again, and they went deep into the garage. Sure, but do you have any wine? Selena was stalling for time. Sure, he rushed to the bar, pulled out a bottle, opened it. They sat down on the couch that was there. He poured the wine, they toasted. "I want to drink to you for understanding me instead of judging me," he winked at her. "Where's your restroom around here?" She looked around. She prayed to God that all the amenities were outside. "Selena, how much do you need?" He looked and waited for her to say no. "What kind of questions?" She made a knave face. "Sure, let's go." He took her under his arm and led her to the door. As soon as the door opened, there was immediate screaming. Evan was pawed, and Selena was pulled outside. "Are you all right?" Max asked her. "Yes, calm down." She was in his arms. "Thank God," he exhaled. He thought about calling in the specialist to cut those gates. He kicked the garage door open. "Why didn't you think it through?" She wasn't reproaching. She was just saying. Who knew he would drag you into the garage? He never let his wife go. No matter how the man denied it, no one believed him anymore. He had all the evidence on his shelves. They loaded him into a car and took him away. "Will we be going home soon?" Selena asked again and again. "When the trial is held, we'll go." Max wanted to bring everything to an end. The co-workers' girlfriends, when they found out what had happened, they couldn't believe it. Not that this happened to Selena, but how she, so small and fragile, dared to go for it a second time and was not afraid of anything. "Veronica, what are you talking about? I would do anything for my husband." She remembered saying that. "You're our hero," they hugged. "I'll be leaving soon." Selena looked sad. "Fine, we'll come visit you." Her friend was not mad at her now. It turned out that Evan did have a family, a wife and 2 daughters. When Selena and her friends thought about it, it was even scary what could have happened to those girls. The wife, when she found out what happened, immediately packed up her daughters and just left town. She didn't want to go to the trial or anywhere else. Max and Selena were sitting in the courtroom. Behind the bar stood a man. He was no longer as groomed as he used to be. The girls sat and looked at him with hatred. How had the earth carried him for so many years? "Your last word," glared the judge at him. "If you knew who your husband was, you would never have helped." He looked angrily at Selena, and she just turned her back on him. Afterward, she and Max quietly packed their things and went to their home. "Are you sure you've forgiven me for everything?" she asked him the whole way. "Honey, I have nothing to forgive you for. You were just victimized by a sick man." He held her hands in his. "Wow, a business trip." She leaned on his shoulder. "Yes, it certainly is an adventure," her husband confirmed. When they were home, they immediately called Grandma Betty to come visit them. "Don't tell her anything," Selena asked. "I'm going to work," her husband whispered to her. "I don't get it. Just got here." She looked confused. "I'll be there soon." He walked out the door. Grandma Betty was glad to have the couple back. She came, stayed with them for a few weeks, and then had to go home again. "And I've been given a vacation," Max told Selena then. "And we're going to the sea," she shouted. Of course, he was happy too. They stayed there for 2 happy weeks, and when they returned, not even a month and a half later, the wife informed her husband that he was about to become a father. Happy, he hugged her like he always did and was ready to do for decades to come. She realized that once upon a time, Grandma Betty was not just right, but very right. After all, it was fate that it was Max who had been sent to tell Selena such sad news then. "It was because I was the youngest," he confessed to his wife. "And I'm happy it's happening," she said, and couldn't believe it was happening to her. "What?" He saw his wife thinking about something. "Tell me, what happened to him in prison?" Selena asked about the rapist. "You know, he won't get away with it," Max said calmly.